Hello, 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 folks. I hope you all are having a great weekend and happy Super Bowl Sunday. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started here in about a minute and a half. Hi, folks. I see we got a few more folks joining us now, so welcome in, everybody. We will be going live here in about 30 seconds. I hope y'all are having a great weekend. Hi, Aslan. It's a beautiful day today where I live. I hope it is for you as well. Alrighty. Hello, folks. Great to see you all. Now, one thing that occurred to me earlier this morning that didn't occur to me previously was that today is Super Bowl Sunday, so which is obviously almost a holiday in the United States. If you're not familiar with the fervor, if you're outside of the United States and you're not quite familiar with the fervor around the Super Bowl, that is something I did not take in consideration when I decided I was going to do a stream today. So we'll see how many viewers we actually get. If it's just a few of us hanging out today, that's perfectly fine. Hey, engineer. Hey, Quad Shot. Good to see you. Also, I'm making it my pledge that we are going to wrap this stream up prior to 6 p.m. Eastern, which is 3 hours from now. To give you plenty of time to get to your Super Bowl party or just make a bag of chips and sit down in front of the TV if that's what you're planning this afternoon. Quad Shot says, I love Super Bowl Sunday. It's so quiet outside. Yes. And so, what we might end up doing is if we only get a few viewers today, that's perfectly fine. That's okay. We'll probably just repeat this, next weekend. We'll see. Hey, Rascal. Good to see you. You got to love the superb owl. Yes, absolutely. Hey, Copper Lily. Hi, folks. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so we may end up just repeating this same content next weekend to allow more folks to join us because I know a lot of folks are busy hanging out with friends or at parties. I honestly, I honestly forgot it was Super Bowl Sunday until earlier this morning, like I said before. So, yeah, I didn't plan this very well. Hey, Kyle, welcome to the stream. What's cooking? Well, today we are cooking up some Microsoft Excel. Yeah, so the plan today is to go over some of the basics of Microsoft Excel, which is free, by the way. You might not have known this. You might have thought, oh, Microsoft product, I gotta buy it. It's gonna cost me money. That is not true. You, right there out in the audience, you can get Microsoft Excel for free from Microsoft. Nothing shady going on here. Which is why one of the reasons I'm talking about it today is that it's a product with a free option or alternative, and that's the kind of thing that I try to promote here on my streams is stuff that is free or has a free option. Yes, TIL, absolutely, yeah. If you would like to follow along and practice with us today, you can do so for free. If you do not have Microsoft Excel currently, all you need is a Microsoft account. So if you are on a Windows machine, Windows 10, I think, anything from Windows 7 onwards, I think requires a Microsoft account or some kind of a login. And so if you have a Microsoft account, you can get Office right now for free. Yeah, and there are if you really do not want to use Microsoft Office, or if you don't want to have to create a Microsoft account, there are other alternatives as well. So real quick, we can look at first off, I'll show you the Office, where to get Office. for free. Um, and I'll put the link in the chat here. And basically, what it gives you is Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Those are the main ones. So Microsoft Word, obviously, for word processing. Excel is what we're going to be talking about today, and PowerPoint allows you to make presentations with boring slides if you really want to. So I shouldn't say boring, but you know what they look like. But anyway, you can get these for free and more. They are web versions only, though. That's the only catch. However, you'll find that the browser versions of these programs are very, very, very similar and sometimes better. In some ways, the browser versions of these programs are better than the desktop versions for compatibility, for being able to link them together with automations, that kind of thing. So I'll put this link in the chat. You can go there right now and get those free versions. I'll spam it a couple more times here. 21 says you can make as many MVC presentations as your heart desires. Yes, if you're going through 100 devs right now, you are asked to make a presentation, like a slide presentation at one point, and so you can use PowerPoint for free now if you would like to. Now, like I say, if you do not want to use Microsoft Office, if that's not your jam, um, then there are other alternatives. A couple of those are Google Sheets and Google Docs, for Office, like Google's version of the Office suite. So Google Sheets, Google Docs, you only need a Google account for those. Another one is LibreOffice, and we can LibreOffice. LibreOffice is open source, so if you're an open source fan, or if you're using if you just really want to keep things open source, you can go for LibreOffice if you would like, which is also very similar. It's got a few quirks, but it's still a good alternative. In school, I remember we used to use Open Office. So you may remember that from your junior high school years. If your school was too poor to afford Office, which my school was, we used Open Office, but Open Office has been discontinued and LibreOffice is the replacement. So those are some options for you. There's plenty of free Office suites out there that are meant to mimic Microsoft Office if you do not wish to use the free version of Microsoft Office. Okay? I'm going to catch up with chat. Yeah, blowing folks' minds with the free Microsoft Office. Yes. Now, if you want to actually get the desktop clients for Office, then yeah, I do believe you're going to have to pay at least a little bit. It's not terribly expensive, but still, why pay if you don't have to, right? Today, when I'm doing my demonstration here, I'm going to be using the desktop version of Microsoft Excel, but only because that's probably what your employer is going to be using. Most larger corporations are going to be using the desktop versions of Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those. So we're going to be using the desktop version today, but you'll be able to follow along in the browser version as well without too much trouble. Nightbright says, just lurking today, have some writing to do. No worries. Yeah. Well, you're welcome to lurk. And the other thing I was going to say is you don't have to follow along today. You can just feel free to listen, watch, and kind of keep this in the back of your brain. My goal here for this stream today is to be a very beginner friendly introduction to Microsoft Excel. So Microsoft Excel is a very complicated product. I would say it's the best piece of software that humanity has ever created. And I mean that genuinely. I think it's the best piece of software that exists today. And I really want people to be less afraid of it because it does seem complicated, but once you start to learn the basics, you'll realize that you sort of get a taste of the things you can do and how to do them. And then a lot of it you can learn on your own. So my goal here is even if you don't follow along today, you'll listen and you'll say, oh yeah, I remember Mayan Wolf saying that you could do X, Y, and Z in Excel. I don't remember how to do it, but I know she said you could do it. So I'm just going to Google that. And then you'll Google it and you'll learn how to do it and you'll do it yourself. All right, catching up here. You're waiting for laundry done in the cloud. Mohammed says, wait, programmers need to learn Excel? As a rule, you do not need to learn Excel, but is Excel going to help you? Absolutely, yes. Now you might say why. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit today. That's part of what we're going to do today is look at a real data set, look at some real data coming from a real government database. And you're going to learn why tools like Excel, analytics tools, and tools that let you visualize data are very, very, very important, especially in today's world of big data. If you are working on an app and you're trying to put, say, some customer data into a database, right? How do you know that data is good? How do you know that data isn't missing stuff? How do you know? How do you gain insights from that data? Right? Is this data okay? Is this data something that you even want to put into your app? Is it going to be right? Are you going to be trying to train an AI on this data? What are you going to be doing with it? And Microsoft Excel is the best way for you to get insights on your data, to share data with customers, and also it Microsoft Excel is the backbone of the business world. If you're going to be in business, you got to know Excel. It doesn't matter really what your role is, but knowing Excel is going to be your best friend because you're going to be working with people who aren't programmers. You're going to be working with people who are marketers, who are your customers, who are your clients. And they don't want to see your code. They want to see a graph. They want to see a simple spreadsheet that they can play around with themselves. So Excel is going to be your best friend. Aspire says, we learn in everything. Yeah, and Kyle says, I work out a lot of confusing calculations in Excel before I put them into JavaScript. Absolutely. Yep. You wait for this vid to go to my YouTube? Sure. Yeah, it'll end up on YouTube in about a month. Yep. Hot Programmer says, Mine Wolf, hi. Please, can you help me? I'm so scared. Is AI going to replace programmers? I'm scared to learn. That's a really common question, and the answer to that question is no. It is not. Because if you haven't worked in development before, and I'm sure chat can back me up here, um, a lot of what you do as a developer, as an engineer, is not writing code. A lot of what you do as a developer is so much human relations type stuff, is working with customers, is negotiating, is writing specs, is translating business requirements. And customers don't know what they want, and if they don't know what they want, they can't put it into an AI and get back what they need. So yeah, no, absolutely not. Is it going to change the way programmers work? Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, go learn to program, you'll be fine. All right. Tusk says, is Excel easier than stuff like R? Yes. um, Before I was a developer, I shouldn't say just, I was a data analyst. And I did most of my work in Excel before I ever learned to write any code at all. And so Excel is the best low code tool that you can use, and anybody can pick it up and just start working at it. It's very visual, um, and that's what makes it so powerful and easy to use. Yeah, and as Rascal says, so Arwen says it's like the most complex, powerful calculator you've ever seen on steroids. Yes, it is. Yeah, it does so much more than people realize. It's so much better than people realize. People see it as a poor alternative to databases when it's really not. It's Some people try to use it as a database, yes, but it's really a data science tool, and you don't have to be a data scientist to use it, which is the good part. Rascal says, I've both used Excel as a middle layer between my team and non technical teams for migrations and transformations, along with quickly prototyping new changes to data. Yes, it's a great middleman between the very technical and the non technical. So if I want to if I want to prepare a data set to give to the chief financial officer, it needs to be simplified, right? It needs to be simplified. It needs to be summarized. It needs to be analyzed to make sure it's correct. And Excel is the tool to do that. All right. Yeah, you can post in chat, Mohammed. I probably won't take a look at it, but other folks in chat can take a look at it if they want. All right. So real quick, I see we've got some more folks who've just joined us. You can get Microsoft Excel for free if you would like to follow along. I'll put the link in chat one more time. All you need is a Microsoft account. And that's the link there in chat. All you need is a Microsoft account and you can follow along as well. So, what are we going to be doing today? Today, we are going to be looking at a real data set. So, we are going to be looking at a real data set and we're going to be doing some analytics on it. Just like I would in a data analysis role, in a role as a developer. A lot of the times you're not going to be writing your own data necessarily. You're going to be taking some existing data and you're going to be doing stuff to it, right? We already do that in our apps. A lot of the times we'll take like an existing API and we will manipulate that data before we show it to the user, right? And so today we're going to be taking an existing data set. We're going to be learning about it in Excel. We're going to be analyzing it. And then in the end, we're going to be creating some analytics results. We're going to be creating some graphs and things off of it. And along the way, we're going to be learning the basics of working in Excel. So, how do you navigate? What do you click? What does this button do? That type of thing. Yeah, and as Quadshot said, you can use Excel for your own business as well. You can create formulas for calculating like client rates, hourly rates. You can create, your own account balance sheets, that type of thing. Hey, one and only, I do not. Someone else in chat might know that though. And so before we get started here, if you would like or want closed captions, you can hover your mouse over the right side of your screen, right about here, and there will be a closed caption button. You can click that and turn on live captioning for this stream. All right, so what are we going to be looking at today? Today, we're going to be looking at a data set from data.gov. This is real government data coming from real government data collectors. So this is not just sample data that I made up. This is real data. And I chose to use real data for this because I wanted to show you how messy real data can be, how good it can be, and how bad it can be. I think most people will be surprised how gnarly real data can be. You think that, oh, well, it's an official data set, it's coming from the government, it must be perfect and fine, and scientists are using this data. Yeah, no. That's why people that's why data analysts exist. That's why people like me with my job exists as a senior BI analyst, or sorry, senior BI developer. This is the kind of thing we have to work on all the time. Oh, thank you for the follow. Rusty Guy, welcome to the stream. Everything the government does is clean and good. No. So what we're gonna do today is if you do exclamation point project in chat, you'll get a link to this same page. So head here if you want to follow along with us. Head here, and you can download this data. We're going to be downloading a data set of popular baby names. This is from the state of New York, and it goes from 2011 through like 2019. This is baby names. It shows their rank. It shows the count of baby names by year. It's by gender and ethnicity. And we're going to go ahead and download this, and we're going to start working with it. So I am going to download this as a comma separated values file. And all that means is that it uses commas as the delimiter in the file. So if you see a file that's .csv, that works just fine with Microsoft Excel. It uses commas as a delimiter. Now, what does delimiter mean? Does anybody remember? We talked about this last week, actually. What does delimiter mean? Hey, Techie, good to see you. Yeah, copy, Lily. A comma delimiter is a separator. Exactly. So I'm going to open it here. It's in my downloads. I'm going to go ahead and open it, and it'll just open up in Excel. Now I'm actually going to change the scale of my screen so that you can see this a little better and you can see all the buttons. So give me just a moment. I forgot to do that. Let's see. What is it? Zoom. Oh, it's zoom, not scale. What is it? Settings. Give me a second. Ah, here we go. I forgot I was going to do that, and then I didn't. Oh, here we go. 125, I think, is good. There we go. That's made things a lot bigger for us. Hopefully that's a little easier to see. Can y'all see that okay? Yeah, okay, looks better. All right, now, once you're in Excel, uh, if you are using an assistive device such as a screen reader or other assistive technologies, you can navigate to the File menu. I'm just going to show you this real quick. You can navigate to the File menu. You can navigate to Options and Accessibility. And there is a feedback option for providing feedback with sound. And you can also, I think there was a screen reader option that would read aloud. It would read aloud things for you as well. So provide feedback with sound, I think makes a sound when you hover over something. And I apologize, I thought I saw this earlier, but I believe there's also a way that you can have it audibly read the tooltips as well. So I would check this definitely at the very least. And actually, I think this may be the option that you need. So just an FYI there. So now let's take a look at what we have. You'll notice I'm doing some adjustments here. I'll tell you what those are in a second, but let's just get familiar with the interface at first. So what we have here is our spreadsheet. So I'm going to use a couple terms here. The sheet that we're on right now, so this sort of grid, this is called a spreadsheet, or it's a just a sheet. You might hear it called just as a sheet, and it's just basically whatever is on this tab. So I can create a new sheet by clicking the plus icon here at the bottom, and that will create another sheet. Now this whole sort of group of sheets that we're working with is called a workbook. Okay, so workbook can contain multiple sheets. But today we're really just going to be focusing on one sheet. And also, too, as we're working with this data, I'm going to lay down just a couple of ground rules. So please don't comment on the ethnicity or the names or anything like that. No jokes, nothing like that. So I'm just going to lay that down off the start. And then if anything, if anybody makes derogatory comments about a particular ethnicity or a particular name, I will ban you. So FYI, please don't. All right. Let's see. Oh, and Kyle says, for those of you, if you're using the web import, so if you're using the web, so if you're in Microsoft Online for free, you can open the CS file, you can open the file with File Open, and then open the CSV from where you downloaded it on your computer. Okay? So if you're working with us in the web, you can just go to File Open, and then open it there. Oh, let me, I think I have Excel open. So let me just go over to the web real quick. So this is the web version right here. This is the web version of Excel. There should be a file icon in the left, and you can click File and open or import from there. Okay. Hi, Fuel. Good to see you. Also, if you're on the web, I'm going to have you do. Copper Lily says, "Do I need to open a blank workbook first?" Yeah, you can open a blank workbook, and then you can go to File and open from there. There's no harm in opening a blank workbook. All right. And then if you're on the web, I'm going to have you do one more thing, and then I'm going to switch back to the desktop app. Let's see, you can't really see that very well. There we go. If you're on the web, navigate over to the far right and click this little down arrow right here. So on the web interface, you might see this sort of collapsed display as the result. Click the down arrow and then click Classic Ribbon. And when you do that, you'll see some more options here that will appear. So down arrow and then Classic Ribbon. So that way you'll see the same thing that I do on the desktop version. And you'll be able to kind of, stay in sync with the desktop version. Okay. So Copper Lily, can you say a little bit more about what's not cooperating with the web version? Are other folks able to open the file in the web version? I just want to make sure we don't have another issue, something else wrong with the web version before we go on. You got it, Kyle? Okay. So Copper Lily, when you go to the, I can't show you the Office homepage because it would display some things that are unique to my organization. So I can't show you those. I can't show you that, unfortunately. Um, so if you are on the homepage for Office, you'll want to click on Microsoft Excel, and then you'll want to click on Blank Workbook. That will get you to where I am right now. And I'll put the download link in chat again too. Okay, yeah, Copper Lily, you could follow along in Google Sheets instead if you would like. You can open the data set in Google Sheets if Excel isn't working for you right now. Like I said, you can do, you know, most of this stuff in Google Sheets similarly to Microsoft Excel. And once again, we are using the free version of Excel that's in the browser, so don't bother. You know, you should. Microsoft isn't going to make you pay anything. You should just get the free version. All right. So I've switched back to the desktop app here now, and we're looking at the data set that I've opened on the desktop. And once again, we're working here in a workbook, and we're working on a single sheet. So as we're navigating around, oh, and Bombaloni says they had to allow pop-ups. So if your browser is set to block a lot of things, you might be accidentally blocking the tab that the workbook is on. So if you have an ad blocker or something like that, watch for a little block pop-up icon and maybe try clicking on that and seeing if you can get the workbook to open. All right, so as I'm moving my mouse around here, you'll notice that my cursor is kind of like a little plus icon, right? And as I'm clicking, I can click into these individual cells. So these little grid, you know, rectangles here, these are called cells. And inside of these cells, I can start entering information, right? I can start typing here. I can type, I can backspace. And if I wanted to, I could enter a bunch of information manually. Now, the great thing about Microsoft Excel is that you're not going to have to enter things manually very often. Power users of Excel hardly really ever enter things by hand. They're usually using formulas or pasting data or using existing data sets. Oh, you got it open, QuadShot. Awesome. Now, if I want to select multiple cells at once, I can click inside the first cell like this, and I can drag my cursor across and select multiple cells. Let's say I want to delete this information. I can drag my cursor across the cells and I can click delete. So that's the basics of entering and deleting data. Now let's start experimenting with the data that we have right here. Because for me anyway, I think the best way to learn about something is working on a real example. So let's start just taking a look at this data that we have and let's make some observations about it. So what do we see here? I see that I've got many rows, right? This data set is very large. I've also got multiple columns. So if we're talking in terms of tables, we've got rows, which are horizontal like this. They go up and that are essentially each one of these is a row. Each line of data is a row. And each vertical line of data is a column. So we've got multiple rows and columns. We've got a year, we've got gender, ethnicity, child's first name, count, and rank. So rank here meaning the rank that name had in the year. So we've got, we're going across multiple years here. So in, 2011, Geraldine was ranked 75 in the female baby names. And then there was a count of 13 Geraldines in 2011. Um, and so that's kind of the basics of the data that they've captured here. Now, like I said, there's a lot of data here, right? And that's what you're often going to encounter if you're looking at like a real data set. Yeah. And so the Quadshot says, how many are named Claire? Just curious. And that's actually something we're going to figure out how to capture, right? We're going to figure out we're going to learn how to look at this data set and figure out how many babies are named Claire. Yeah, and frankly, we're absolutely going to talk about that. They say, I found that removing duplicates and sorting are very useful skills. That's exactly what we're going to be using. That's why we're working with a real example today, because those types of practical skills are really great when working with data. So I can scroll up and down in this data, using my scroll wheel on my mouse. So let's say I want to find how many babies were named Claire. Now, theoretically, what I could do is I could scroll through this data and I could look for any Claires. Well, there's a Caroline, there's a Casey. Oh, there's a Claire. And I could say, okay, there's one. And I could keep going. And Desist says, I love Excel. I do too. I could keep going. And those are the boys. It's another. But this probably isn't going to work, right? Like, who wants to do this? I don't. So there must be a better way, right? This hurts my heart. I know. Yeah, so there must be a better way. And that's what Excel is for. It's for helping us capture insights about data. So I'm going to go back up to the top of my data set. I'm going to, instead of, having to scroll all the way back up to the top, I'm 780 rows in. Instead of that, I'm going to teach you your first keyboard shortcut. So if you want to go back up to the top of your data, hold down the control key. I believe on a Mac it's the command key, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And then hold down control and hit home. And when you do that, it will take you up to the top of your data. Rascal says it. Stand up tomorrow morning. It took all day, but I found out how many Bobs there are. Yep. So control home will take you back up to the top of your data. And then control end will take you to the very end. So control end will take you to the very end of your data. So we can see that there's 57,583 rows in this data set, and I sure as heck am not going to scroll through all of them. So I'm going to hit Control Home again and go back up to the top. All right, so let's think about let's learn a way that we can maybe get some more insights more quickly on this data. Let's say I just want to get familiar with the data set and learn more about it. I don't really know what's in it. I don't know what it looks like fully. I want to kind of like sort these rows, right? Wouldn't it be nice if I could sort by year? If I could sort by, like, if I wanted to sort the names in alphabetical order, that would show me. If I could just go down to the C's and be like, oh, yeah, here's the number of people named Claire, right? That would be a quicker way to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to click in cell A1. I'm going to go to the data tab. And when I do that, we can see that the number of options I have here is now different. So we were originally on the home tab, which has a lot of options. But if I go to the data tab, that's going to give me a different set of options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this filter option. Okay, we're going to click filter. And when I did that, hey, Robodom, good to see you. When I did that, notice what changed. What do we have here? What does this look like? What do these look like? Where have we seen these before? Yeah, these little arrows are drop downs, right? They're drop downs. So if I click on one of these, let's see what it does. Oh, hello. When I click on it, I get a list of all the years in my data set. That's wild. Thank you for the follow. So I wonder, what if I were to click on the one for child first name? What would that do? Oh, hello. It gives me a list of all the unique names in the data set. What Excel has done for us automatically is analyze the data, picked out all the unique values, and it's going to allow us to filter and sort on those values just with this little drop down. So we didn't have to we didn't have to build a function to do that. We didn't have to call any methods. We didn't have to do anything. Excel automatically analyzed all the data for us, all 57,000, 58,000 rows, and said, all right, here's your data. What do you want to do with it? It just does that automatically. So there's a few things we could do. Well, we said we wanted to know how many people were named Claire, right? So why don't we do that? If I just want to see the Claires, I've clicked on the little drop down arrow next to the first name column. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck this box for select all. I'm going to uncheck that. And when I do, it removes all of the checkboxes next to these names. Now, I just want to filter on, well, I could really click any of these and I could filter on, say, everybody named Abby, right? I could click on this and it would filter to everybody named Abby. But I want to look for people named Claire. So again, I could scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until I get down to the C's. But there are a crap ton of names in here, right? I don't want to scroll. So again, Excel has given us a shortcut. I can search for the name that I want, and I want the name of Claire. And when I do that, what do we get? We get Claire. And it's already checked for us and everything. So Excel says, "Oh, you're looking for the name Claire? I got you, bro. I got you, bro." And it has checked it for us. So, all right, that's exactly what I want. I'm going to click OK. And here we go. Suddenly, my data set is filtered to just the values of Claire. Robodom says, I came in late, but is MS Excel helpful for managing database values? In my job as a SQL developer, I often use it to spot check tables and to spot check database values and to clean up data. We get a lot of our data from external systems in flat files. And so Excel is very good for that. My work had me using validating data on a JSON file. It was so perplexing. Yeah, Excel has some ability to process JSON. It's a little bit more advanced, so we aren't going to be covering it today, but you can work with JSON in Excel, and you can generate JSON using Excel as well. I'm actually going to, if there's time, I'm going to show you all that at the very end. How you can, if you want to say generate JSON for your API, or something similar, or generate JSON for your application, you can use Excel to take a regular file, a regular data set, and turn it into JSON with just a script. Alsha says, I'm getting an error in opening a new workbook. Okay, we had somebody else that had that as well. What I did get that error once, I think yesterday. I wonder if Microsoft is having a little glitch right now. What you might try doing is signing out of your Microsoft account and then signing back in. That actually worked for me yesterday when that happened. Microsoft might just be, of course, Microsoft is glitching on the day I'm talking about Excel, but yeah, you just try signing out of your Microsoft account, and Copperlily, you might try that as well. Try signing out of your Microsoft account and signing back in, and then opening Excel again and opening a blank workbook. All right, so I was able to filter this data set. Microsoft took the day off for the Super Bowl. Yeah. I was able to filter this data set to find all the people named Claire, right? Which is great. That's awesome. Now, Alsha says, do I just download the JSON file and open an Excel? You're going to want to download the CSV file, so the comma separated values file. Yeah, download the CSV, and Excel will absolutely know how to open that. Mm-hmm. All right, now I noticed that this column here with ethnicity is a little bit sort of cut off, right? I can't quite read all these records. So there's two ways I can fix that. I can make the column wider. If I hover over the divider here between the columns, notice my cursor changes into like a little size arrow thing. I can drag that to the right and make my column wider. Or I can just double click on the divider between the columns. So I can just do this. Double click, and it automatically sizes the column so that I can see all the information. So I just double click on the column separator to automatically resize the column to the correct size. Engineer Moore says, so a CSV file is like a JSON file for spreadsheets? Kind of, yeah. It's you'll find CSV files are really, really common when you're dealing with data. So when you're dealing with raw data from databases or data sets, a lot of the times it's going to be in a comma separated values format. And that's because it takes up less space, but it allows spreadsheet programs to properly delimit the data. So unlike a text file, um, sometimes text files are comma delimited, but CSVs have a little bit more formatting, and so your programs are going to know where those columns are and how to separate the information into separate cells. Yeah, but CSV is a file format you should absolutely be comfortable, working with if you can. All right, so now that we can actually see what's in the column here, your Mac doesn't like Microsoft? Color me not surprised. Oh, that's funny. Copperly says that their Mac isn't cooperating with their Microsoft account. And again, you can do most of this stuff in Google Sheets as well. So if you're just not vibing with the Microsoft Excel, that's perfectly fine. You can work in Google Sheets. All right. So now that I can see this information, oh my goodness, Tracy DK, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Let me get the sub window going here. Thanks so much for subscribing, Tracy. You're very cool. Thank you. Also says signing in again worked. They were getting an error when they were trying to open a blank workbook, so I'm glad that worked for you. All right, thanks again, Tracy. Yeah, and Rascal says we transform our data living in a good old Postgres database into CSVs for the tools the analytics teams need. Yep, that's very common. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at this data. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to sort it by year because I want to see, all right, how many people were named Claire in the year 2011, 2012, 2013. But as I'm scrolling through this data, I can see that the years are all jumbled up. So, all the 20, there's some 2011s down here, there's some up top. Like it's very confusing, and I can't get a good sense of how many people were named Claire in each year. So if I want to do that, again, I can click on our trusty drop down here. And what do you think I should choose? If I want to sort by year, what do you think I should choose here from the options? Yeah, if I want to sort by year, I'm going to go ahead and choose smallest to largest. And what that does is it sorts my data so that I have all the 2011s, then all the 2012s, then all the 2013s, 14s, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Hey, Need Job, welcome to the stream. And now I get a better sense of how many people were named Claire by year. Now, also looking at this, I can see it looks like all of them are female, which makes sense. And we've got all sorts of ethnicities here, not seeing too much of a trend. We've got a few folks who are Hispanic named Claire. Uh, Another thing, what else do we notice here? Now that we've sorted this data and filtered the data, do you see anything about the rows themselves that looks maybe a little weird? Just looking at all the data in the rows, do you notice something that might look a little strange now that we've sorted and filtered it? Yeah, that's a great insight, Rascal. Noticing that we've got some upper cases and some lower cases. That's right. Anything else that you see? I'll give you guys a second. I'm going to hydrate. I'll give you guys a second to look at it. This is where this is where being a data analyst comes in. This is the sort of thing, or even just anybody, being a developer, you should be able to look at data critically and see things that might be wrong. Mm, yeah. RCS and Elliot Markley say lots of duplication. Yeah, lots of duplication, right? Look at this right here. These two rows are identical. Yeah, these two rows are identical. And more. Look. These rows are identical to these rows. So there are a ton of duplicates in this data set. Now, why might that cause a problem? Why could duplicates be a problem in a data set? Chatster, thank you for the follow. Why are if you're thinking and think like an analyst, think like a statistician here. Why would duplicates be a problem in a data set? Or think about if you're putting this data in your application, why would duplicates be a problem? Yeah. Kyle says, when totaling, it could throw it off. Yeah, exactly. Minnie says if you're looking for a total, it won't reflect what actually happened. Yeah, so let's say in your application, let's say you're building an application that's just a kind of a fun dashboard, right? Forget about Excel for a minute. Let's say you're building a web app that and you're loading this data into your MongoDB database. And you want to make a little fun baby name, picker for your customer. And you want to show the total of of baby names by year, right? How many you want to show, they can put, maybe the customer can search for a name and then they get to see how popular that name is in a particular year. Well, if you have duplicates in your data set, you're going to get way more people named Claire in a particular year than actually happened. So your data is going to be wrong. Yeah, your averages, your means, your medians, all of your calculations are going to be wrong if your base data isn't good. And so that's why Excel can be so great at helping you just look at the data and figure out what's going on. Because if you had just taken this data set and tried to look at it with your eyes, if you're just looking at it visually, you wouldn't notice this. This isn't something that you would just notice off the rip because the data is just all, it's out of order, it's scattered, you don't know what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, if running an average is going to skew the results. And Quadchat said, do we need more filter criteria to clear it up? Well, filtering is going to make it look nice for us right now, like as we're looking at it right now. But filters don't get rid of anything, they just hide it. So I noticed that some folks were commenting earlier that the row numbers over here on the left, where my mouse is, that the row numbers are all screwy now, right? They're like, these look odd. And this really isn't a problem. What this is showing us is that we have filtered the data. So, for example, this row 1, this is the header row, right? It's the first row in our data set. This 290 here just means that the first instance of Claire is on row 290 in the original data. So we're filtering out 289 rows prior to this row right here. So this is just helping us keep track of the original rows in the data set. And so if I were to unfilter this, the row numbers would go back to normal because we'd be seeing all the rows again. So I hope that makes sense. So again, just adding more filters and filtering on more things isn't going to clean up the original data. So if we want to clean up the original data and get rid of those duplicates, I'm going to show you a very quick and easy way to do that, because getting rid of duplicates is something you're going to have to do a lot. Yeah. Neat Coder says, I think SQL can help with such problems by making unique keys. Yes, SQL can help, but even in SQL databases, you're not always going to be able to have unique keys. And depending on what query you run to get that data, you might be filtering out the unique values in such a way that you still end up with a data set with duplicates. So even a SQL database with unique keys isn't going to prevent duplicates from happening, which is why whenever you're testing out a new data set, a new, a table in a database, something like that, you should be doing this type of analysis and confirming that your data is good, or confirming that the subset of data you're giving to your customers doesn't have crap like this in it. Because remember, this is a government data. This is coming from the city of New York, from the data.gov website. And it still looks like this. Yeah. So wild stuff happens, right? All right. So what do? How do we take care of these duplicates? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the filter, just so we can get a better feel for what's going to happen here. So how I can remove the filter is click on the little drop down again. And you can see that the little drop down icon, it's probably hard to see because this is very small, but it's actually got a little filter icon here indicating that a filter has been applied. And if I hover over the icon, we can see it's actually telling me what filter we have applied. It says child's first name equals Claire. So that's just reminding us, hey, you've got a filter on. This is what the filter is. And I'm going to, I'll catch you up in just a second. So to remove that filter, I'm going to click on the drop down again, and I'm going to click clear filter. And when I do that, we can see it removes the filter and the rows go back to normal. So the row numbers are back to normal. Our filter is gone. And if you want to, if you're catching up and you want to say, oh, how do I get those drop downs? Just click inside your table here, or inside your data set, click here. For example, in cell A1, go to the data tab at the top of the screen, and then click on the filter button. And when you do that, Excel is going to automatically map out the entirety of your data set, and it's going to apply these little filter boxes, or these little filter drop downs for you. Okay? Yeah, and as Mattel says, this is really something to, and I'm going to keep saying this because it's so important and it's something that people overlook. Mattel says if your raw data is wrong, then you can expect anything you do with that data to produce invalid results, regardless of what you do with SQL. Exactly. Your source data is king, and your source data is what's being used to train things like AI. And your source data is being used to train, machine learning models. Your source data is being scraped and put into ChatGPT. And so if your data is wrong, then anything built off of that data is wrong. So again, I can't stress that enough, how important it is to understand what data you're using and be able to look at it critically. So we want to get rid of duplicates. How do we do that? Well, it's very easy to do. We don't even have to leave the data menu here. So on the data menu, just to the right a little bit of the filter button, there's a button here that says remove duplicates. So let's go ahead and click that. Let's see what happens. When I do that, it automatically highlights my whole data set, and it says to delete duplicate values, select one or more columns that contain duplicates. Well, for us, it's automatically selected our whole data set, which is what we want. And we could select or unselect specific columns if we wanted to. But I think we want to keep all of these intact. We don't want to get rid of any valid data. We just want to remove the exact duplicates across the entire rows. You're not seeing that in the web version. It should be there. Let me just double check really quickly. I'm going to swap to the web version. Yeah, so Bomboloni, it's right here. It's on the data tab in the web version. If you're not seeing that, make sure that you've expanded the ribbon. So in the web version, on the very right side, that's behind my chat window there, on the very right side, you should see a little down arrow. Click that and make sure that you've got classic ribbon selected. So classic ribbon. And when you do that, if you go to the data tab right here, you may have to, if you're on like the home tab, you may have to navigate to the data tab, and then you'll see remove duplicates toward the right. Okay. Yeah, no worries. It's okay. Like I said, Excel is very complicated. There's a lot going on here. So that's why I'm going really slowly, and feel free to ask questions. There's so much to talk about with Excel that I'm really only going to be focusing on a few select things, but I understand there's a lot of options here if you're not familiar with the interface. Admiral Zed, thank you so much for the follow. All right, so we're working on removing duplicates. We've got all the columns selected, which is what we want. We also have checked the column that says my data has headers, because it does have headers, right? And by headers, we mean the labels here at the top of the columns. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Wow, look at that. It says 39,529 duplicate values found and removed. 18,053 unique values remain. Note that counts may include empty cells, spaces, etc. Yeah. So there were 39,529 duplicate values in the spreadsheet with only 18,000 unique values. Yeet, indeed. Yeah, so we just yeeted like a third of, or no, sorry, we yeeted like, what is that, 2/3 of the data. We just went boop because they were duplicates. And then we can click OK. And you can undo that if you need to. You can always Control Z and undo that if it wasn't what you wanted, but that was what we wanted here. We wanted to get rid of those duplicates. Robodom says, is keeping your main source of data on a separate file like a MS Excel sheet considered best practices or most appropriate method? I'm not sure what you mean by main source of data. Can you ask that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean by main source? Icefire says, are they actual duplicates or just data from different civil registration centers that have matching numbers? We don't know, right? We don't know. We don't have that information. It's not in this data set. So all we know that it is duplicated, and there's no way to differentiate that, right? It would be great if we could filter out, you know, if we could filter out different registration centers or whatever, but unfortunately that data just isn't in here. So the best thing for us to do to ensure accuracy is just get rid of those full duplicates, so we're not double counting. Robodom says, oh, like where you would keep all your data or the main places to store data. Well, the nice thing about Excel is that it depends on what your data is. So if you just have a data set like this, I would probably keep the original source on its own tab. So it's on its own sheet. And then, like I'm going to show you later, probably after the break, is we're going to learn more advanced ways of actually analyzing this data, right? So we've gotten rid of the duplicates, which makes this a lot easier to work with. But wouldn't it be nice if we could have some graphs, some visuals? Wouldn't it be nice if we could just somehow summarize the data, maybe pivot it? Wouldn't that be cool? And so we're going to do that a little bit. And when we do that, we will notice that the original data source will just kind of hang out here on this sheet, and we're going to be using other tools on a different sheet to analyze that data. Now, if you're working with something like a database, like a SQL database, maybe, or a MongoDB database, or even a Microsoft Access database, then that's going to be generally too big to fit inside of an Excel workbook. Excel does have a limit on the number of rows that you can have in a workbook. I forget if it's like a million rows, something like that. Um, a million rows, something like that, is the limit on the number of rows you can have on a sheet. And a lot of the times, data is going to be bigger than that. You're going to have data that's, you know, 20 million rows, something like that. But you can still work with that data. And you can work with that data by connecting to the database directly with Excel. So you can set up a connection to a SQL database in Microsoft Excel and directly work with the data. We aren't going to do that today because that's a little bit more advanced. But if you look right here on the data tab, what you'll see is that you can get data from pretty much anywhere. You can get data from a database, from SQL Server, from Access, from IBM, from MySQL, from Postgres, from Sybase, Teradata, SAP, anywhere. You can get data from Azure. You can get data from SharePoint, from Salesforce, from literally anywhere. You can even get data from a website. You can literally put in a URL for a website. If it, let's say a website has a table on it, like a table on the website, you can literally say, okay, Microsoft, get me that data and put it in Excel. And you can put the URL for that literally just in a box and it will go and retrieve that data from the internet. So Microsoft can work pretty much from any data source that you can possibly think of. It doesn't have to be inside of the workbook itself. Yeah. Mattel says 65,000 rows used to be the limit. Yeah, now it's up to like a million and something. Yeah. Really anything that stores data, you can pull that data into Excel and you can connect Excel directly to it. Yep. So this is why no matter what your data source is, you should be using Excel to analyze the data because you can pull it in. You can even get data from a picture. You can get data. You can take a picture of data and import it into Excel. It can do anything. Yep. Anyway, I digress. But okay, so we've gotten rid of our duplicates here. So now I'm going to go ahead and filter again back to the name Claire. And let's see what the data really looks like now. So again, I'm going to click the drop down. I'm going to search for the name Claire. And let's take another look. Ah, that looks much better. That's much better. So now we can see that I've got a unique row for each ethnicity. Right? You can see unique rows for each ethnicity for each year. And this looks much better. We've still got some issues here with like the capitalization. So we've got some upper cases here. We've got some lower cases. But the nice thing is that Excel is smart enough that it doesn't differentiate between upper and lower. It recognizes that these are the same name. So we don't have to worry about capitalization messing us up. Now, we are going to fix this later on. We're going to write a very simple formula that's actually going to fix and make sure that all these things are capitalized correctly and that everything has the same uniform capitalization, because uppercase and lowercase in the same table just doesn't look good. So we're going to, after the break, we're going to learn how to write a formula in Excel to fix this and make sure that all the names in this column look like this, that have this proper case kind of capitalization. Yeah. Yeah, you can use industrial. So Mattel says, when I was doing industrial controls, that was usually an option: send data from your PLC to Excel. Yeah, Excel can ingest really any kind of data. Mattel says, so out of thousands of records, you ended up with about 20 different ones. Yeah, because there were that many duplicates. It was just that's why I chose this data set. I looked at several of them. That's why I chose this data set, because it was so gnarly. There's so much going on with it. We've got the weird capitalization. We've got what's it? Okay, so let's look at this again. Let's take another critical look at our data. What else do we notice? What else do we notice as we're just looking at the data? Is there anything else that looks strange or maybe wrong? Hmm. Um, Muma says, "Hi, just so you know, if you need to handle over 1 million rows, use Power Pivot." Yes, yeah. I was just talking about like in a basic workbook. I think the limit is 1 million rows, but there's other ways you can handle much larger data sets by using tools such as Power Pivot, by it linking to an external database. Absolutely, Excel can. People used kind of discount Excel because it had hard limits on the amount of data you could work with, but that's really not the case anymore. In the past like 10 years, Excel can handle data pretty much of any size. Kyle says repeat ethnicities. Yeah, but if you look, the ethnicities are repeated, but not really, because they're separated by year. So for 2011, we've got white, we've got Asian. 2012, Asian, white. So not really. These repeats are fine, because they're repeated year over year. Mm. Bombaloni says on the web version, how do you deselect something? I seem to have applied remove duplicates incorrectly on only one column. I'm not quite sure what you mean by deselect, but if you have like if you have if you've highlighted some cells, you could always hit escape. Or sorry, not escape. You could always just click out of it like this. So if I've highlighted a bunch of stuff, I could always just click somewhere else like that to get away from it. Or you could always hit Control Z. Yeah, if you just want to undo what you already did, and put those duplicates back and try it again, you can hit Control Z and back out of it. Yeah, there is still something going on here. So let's take a look. A, a way we can probably quickly spot the problem is using Excel to help us. So let's click the drop down on ethnicity. What do we see now? Look at the list of available values. What do you see? Yeah, we've got some truncation, don't we? Oh, you got it, Bombaloni. Yay, good job. Way to go. Good troubleshooting. Yeah, we've got some, look at this. We've got some truncation, right? We see a couple of these values are cut off. Yeah. And so what that turns into is two distinct values when they really should be one, right? This is only one. The Asian Pacific Islander is a single ethnicity, but some of the data is cut off. And also for white non-Hispanic, also too, it's treating this as two distinct values because one of them is truncated. So I don't need to filter anything here. I can cancel out of this. But Excel is showing us that, hey, you've got two distinct values here, and that's not actually what we want. Now, why that is, who knows? But it could be because, of an older system that had a wrong character length. It could be because when they were creating the data, it got cut off somewhere. It was input differently. Yeah, there could be a bajillion reasons why. It could be a programming error in the app that they use to input the data. Who knows? Could be, they were inputting it on a computer that was, 40 years old and just and couldn't handle anything longer than this. That's probably what I'm guessing is that the source application just couldn't handle anything longer than this character length. Um, but whereas some of the other applications where they were putting in this data could handle the full length. So just a guess. But again, we have another problem with our data that you may not have noticed if you were just looking at it as a full data set, right? You probably wouldn't have spotted this. And then what would that do? If you were trying to build an application out of this, if you were trying to, build analytics, build graphs from this data, what would that do? If this type of thing was in your source data? Oops. Quadshot says it's a 14 character limit. That's an old NetBoys limit. Yeah, Rusty says it could skew the results to have more categories than really exist. Kyle said it would exclude them from queries, potentially. Yes. Yeah. Another thing, this is really dangerous. So this is why I wanted to highlight this. This is really dangerous in that it would, yeah, if you were, for example, if you were just querying for Asian and Pacific Islanders and the results you got back, were basically excluding the entire year 2012, right? Because if you were just querying for this, it would exclude all of these women from 2012. And then Asian Pacific Islanders would be underrepresented. If you were doing analytics on this, if you were doing something to say um, determine funding for a particular cultural group, or if you were doing analytics on this to determine funding for neonatal care at a hospital, right? And you were querying on Asian Pacific Islander and you accidentally excluded all of these values here, then you would be causing real harm to people. Or if your application, if you were building, again, if you were building a web app based on this data and you accidentally exclude everyone everyone from a particular ethnicity from a particular year, and people are using that data to make decisions on who to give money to, on how to train an AI, then you are causing real material harm to real people. And so that's why data matters. That's why data quality matters. That's why you should understand whatever data you're choosing to use for your application, because it's important. So sorry to get a little spicy there, but that's why this stuff matters, right? Yeah. And so we're going to take a break, and then when we come back from that break, we're going to learn how to correct this. We're going to fix these issues. We're going to fix the capitalization. We're going to fix the issues with this truncation here. We're going to replace these. We're going to fix the capitalization, and we're also going to add some other helpful fields, such as what if I wanted to see all the names that started with A? What if I wanted to see all the names that started with B and filter on those? Right? What if I wanted to create even more columns that don't exist? We can do that. Kyle says somebody got lazy in 2012. Who knows, right? Anytime you're letting humans enter data, it gets wild. Yeah. Quadchat says some operating systems or file systems would limit to 14 characters because older databases have that limit. Yeah, 100%. Frankly said these kinds of inconsistencies can be kind of hard to spot. Yeah, which is why Excel can be so helpful in helping us spot them. Um, this was really hard to see, right? This was really hard to see until we used Excel's tools to just immediately highlight the problem for us, because Excel was able to analyze the data and summarize it for us. Smoke Fresno pepper spicy. Mattel says, I thought you said we were going to learn how to corrupt this. I was like, ooh, database hacking. No, it's really easy to mess up data sets, but it's a lot harder to fix them. All right, so we're going to take a break. And when we come back, yeah, like I said, we're going to learn how to fix this. We're going to learn how to make it so these aren't truncated anymore, so that they look like these. We're going to learn how to fix the capitalizations, and we're going to do it for the entire data set. We're not just going to do it for this little, for all the people named Claire, because that wouldn't help anything. We're going to learn how to do it for the entire data set, which is now about 20,000 rows, much smaller than it was. And then after we have made our data clean, after we've cleaned our data, we're going to add a couple of fields, such as, again, first letter. So if I want to know all the names that started with A, all the names that started with B, we're going to write a formula to find that information for us. And then we're going to write a formula to correct the capitalization and basically get our data nice and clean, and then do some additional analytics, build some graphs, build some pivot tables, build some regular tables, and really start getting some insights out of this. All right, cool. So 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to do all of those things and try to wrap up by 6 p.m. for the Super Bowl. If we can, we're going to speed up a little bit now that you've kind of seen the interface, and we're kind of cooking now, so we'll go a little faster, but we'll see how much we get to. All right, see you back in 5. Apparently my timer's not working, so that's fun, but I'll let you all know when I'll let you all know when it's a 1 minute warning. Okay, folks, we got about a minute left in the break, so get ready to come on back if you're coming back. Get yourself a drink of water, get up and stretch if you've been sitting this entire time, pet your dogs, pet your kids, pet your significant other with their permission, of course, and then come on back. Okay, folks, welcome back. Welcome back. Mattel sharing some good stories there about long file names. Yeah, I've actually encountered that with sometimes some automated SharePoint things I was working on. File name would get too long and then it would error out. Yeah, yeah, file storage and stuff like that is gets pretty wild sometimes. Definitely. That is cool though that they use that for for categorizing things. Definitely. All right, so let's take a look at our data set again. Before the break, we talked about we found some issues with our data set, right? So, how can we clean those up? Well, it's actually pretty easy. So, first, we're going to focus on cleaning up the data that already exists, such as this truncation that we found. We're going to fix the capitalization issue. And then we're going to actually add some more data. So we're going to add a couple of additional rows. One of them being the first letter. So if we want to know how many names start with A, how many names start with B, C, whatever, we can create a additional column in our data for that using Excel formulas. And we're also going to use Excel formulas to correct the capitalization issue that we have here as well and standardize our capitalization. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my filter again. Again, I can just click the drop down and I can click clear filter. So now we're back to baseline with our data set. And again, now that we remove duplicates, it's going to be a lot easier to work with. But let's see if we can fix that issue with the truncation. So first off, I'm going to double check and see which ethnicities are truncated. So now that I've removed my filter, I'm going to click on the drop down next to ethnicity. And we're going to take a look at all the possible choices and make sure that we're capturing everything. Okay, so what I can see here is that Asian and Pacific Islander is potentially truncated. Black non Hispanic is potentially truncated here. And white non Hispanic is potentially truncated. So, yeah, it looks like a definite length issue in an older file system or something like that that was causing this problem. All right, so if I want to get rid of these and convert them to the right thing, we'll do one at a time. And after I do this once, you'll probably see exactly what I'm doing. But I'm going to choose both the truncated and the non truncated version of Asian and Pacific Islander. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. So here's the full version. If we scroll down a little bit, we should probably find a truncated one. Yeah, so right here is where it starts. We can see that in 2012, something went wrong, right? So how could I fix this? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One way I could do it is I could click on a cell that's correct and I could hit Control C to copy the value. And I could then click in one of the cells that's wrong and I could hit Control V to paste. So you're probably familiar with those keyboard shortcuts, Control Z, right? Or sorry, Control C, Control V to copy and paste. So yeah, I could do this. I could do copy and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste. But that kind of sucks, right? Who wants to do that? Now if I was getting paid to do that, all day by the hour or whatever, I might. But really, yeah, as Rusty says, only if you get paid by the hour. Yeah, so that sucks. It's one way to do it. If you're copying and pasting, one single value, you might do that, but that's not good for volume. Okay, well, how about something slightly faster? Another thing I could do is Alsha says, how did you get the whole data set back? If you have a filter applied, click on the drop down arrow for the column that you filtered. So if you filtered on, say, name for Claire, you would click on the drop down arrow next to the name column header. Click on that, and then click remove filter, and then that will get the whole data set back. Find the intern. Yeah, have the intern do it. Actually, I mean, I don't know. I feel like uh, when I was an intern, that's when I learned the most about how to do things faster in Excel. Um, so, all right, what's a faster way to do it? Well, another way that you can quickly copy a value to multiple cells at once is by using what we call the handle. And we'll see how to use this a little bit more later on. But another way you can do it is you can move your cursor into the lower right hand corner of the cell that you want to copy. And it actually turns into a little plus sign. Now, I'm sure you guys probably can't see that on my screen, but if you move your cursor, so click into the cell you want to copy, move your cursor into the lower right, and it'll turn into a little plus sign. And that's what we call the handle because it allows you to grab it and move it or copy it. So I'm going to click on that lower right corner and I'm going to hold down my mouse button and I'm going to drag. So, and I'm not going to go very far. This is just a demonstration of what the handle does. There's better ways to do this. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm incrementing here a little bit. I'm showing you the hardest way first, and then something slightly easier, and then easier and easier. But all of these are things that you're going to do probably at some point. I'm just showing you what they are. So, I've grabbed the handle and I'm dragging it down. You can see it's kind of putting a box around all those cells. And then when I let go, boom, it copied the value down and replaced those truncated versions with the correct one. So that's pretty nice, right? That's rather than doing one single cell at a time, I can do, maybe 10 or 20 at a time. But still kind of sucks a little bit. That is kind of magical. Yeah, it is. And again, if I want to keep going, I can grab the handle, I can click and drag, and I can do more. And it'll copy them down. You'll do this a lot probably with smaller data sets or if you're quickly wanting to fill out a table. Like if you just quickly want to repeat a value just for like 10 rows or something, you'll use the handle and you'll just drag it down. But that's still, I mean, for a data set as large as this, that's still not something that you want to do. Right? Yeah, and that's another great point. Mattel says the only thing I would worry about using the handle is what if there's a value in here that is different, right? What if I had just a value of like Asian, right? Everything around it is what we're trying to replace, but then I have a value of Asian that's just hanging out in here, and I take the handle and I'm not really paying attention and I'm just dragging, drag, 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 drag. Uh-oh. I just overwrote something that shouldn't have been overwritten, right? So I'm going to Control Z, go back. And so that is what you have to be careful with when you're using the handle. And so, like I say, yes, there's a better way to do this. And that way is just find and replace. So all we're going to do is find this value anywhere it occurs, just this specific value, and have Excel replace every single instance of it immediately. So all at once. And you've probably done find and replace before, right? At the very least, you've probably done find on a web page. You do a Control F, you're searching for a specific word. Maybe you're in a Word document and you're searching for something specific. And then you may have also done replace too. If you're in VS Code and you're trying to, replace a keyword with something else, you may have done that as well. And so you can do that exact same thing in Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to click on the value that I want to replace, and I'm going to hit Control F. So by default, it's going to bring up the find box, but we're going to click replace. And when I do that, it brings up the replace box. And so I can say find what, and I can copy the value that I want to do, and I can put it in the box. And then I want to replace it with this value and that. Now there's some more options here. So I'm going to click on that on options. And that's going to give us a lot more potential things we could look at, such as case, right? So if I only want to look for uppercase values, if I want to look for proper case values, I could click on case to make sure that I'm only looking where I want to be. Another thing you'll want to be careful of is where you're searching for values. So if I'm working in a workbook that has 6 sheets with all different values on it, and I want to do a find and replace. I want to make sure I'm only working within the data that I expect, right? So I want to stay on the current sheet. So I'm searching within the current sheet. Um, you don't really have to worry about these other options. And the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to check match entire cell contents. And what that does is it's going to make sure that this text is the only thing in the cell. There's nothing else in the cell that, maybe some extra data, a longer string, something like that, that it's only looking for this specific value in the cell and nothing else. And it's going to replace it with the full text. Now, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Well, what if I was trying to, let's say, let me think of a good example here. Um, what if I was trying to replace the word con with the word pro? And I have a spreadsheet with a big old data set with a bunch of data in it and all sorts of different words and strings and user entered text. And I'm trying to replace the word con with the word pro. If I don't check this, what could happen is that any word containing the letters con, such as convenience, suddenly becomes provenience. Or, the word contrary suddenly becomes protrary, right? Because it's not matching the entire contents of the cell. And I've seen that happen before, more common in Word documents, but it can absolutely happen in larger data sets when you're just finding and replacing without really paying attention. All right, so what we can do here, procatenate, yeah, exactly. Instead of concatenate, we end up with procatenate. So we have a few options here that we can do. We can say replace all, replace, find all, find next. Um, so what replace will do is it should just replace the next value. Oh, cannot find it. Oh, that's because, sorry, I think it's because I'm clicked in the cell. Watch it not work. Find what? Okay, that. Replace. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Sorry. I was clicked somewhere else and so it couldn't find a match. But when I do that, we can see it's replacing one at a time. Boop, 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 boop. So it's kind of doing what we did before, except automatically. Now, if I replace all, what that's going to do is it's going to replace every single instance that it finds, and should tell me how many it replaced. If you want to be sure that what you're going to do is going to be correct, prior to clicking replace all, you can also click find all. And when you do that, it will tell you every single instance of the value that you're going to replace. And you can click on each of these and it's going to take you there. So if I click on, say, this one, it takes me to that exact cell. You can see it's moving my cursor around. Even if it's on a different sheet, it'll take me there. So sometimes you may want to say find all prior to replacing all. Thank you for the follow, Sonic. The opposite of progress is Congress. Exactly. Yes. So got to be careful with those find and replaces. Otherwise, you might end up with Congress. It's a good one. But I'm going to go ahead and replace all. And it says all done. We made 315 replacements. All right. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it with my other concatenated values, or sorry, truncated values. So I'm going to click the drop down next to ethnicity again. And now when I do that, that truncated value isn't in the list anymore. It's gone because we fixed it. And Excel has said, oh, your data set changed. You don't have that truncated value anymore. I can get rid of it. So that confirms for us that we've replaced all the values that were truncated with the proper one. So now I'm going to go to the next one. We'll go faster this time. I'm choosing the next truncated value and the non-truncated value. Click OK. We can go find the first instance of that. It's probably going to be in 2011. There we go. Yep. So I'm going to take this value, find what? The truncated version. Replace with what? The full version. Replacing this with this. We can do a find all. Yep, there's a bunch of them. And then we can do replace. There we go. All done. We made 353 replacements. Now we'll do the last one. And fix these as well. Now I could filter down to 2012 as well. You don't have to scroll down like I'm doing here. You could just do a filter. But I just want to clearly illustrate kind of the cutoff here where it changes. So find what? Truncated version. Replace with what? This. The full version. Okay, I'm just going to click replace all. All done. We made 701 replacements. Wow, that was a lot of bad data, right? And we just fixed it all in a couple seconds. So we just cleaned up, we just did a complete cleanup of our data set. That whole process took less than a minute, right? That's much better data, much cleaner data. So if I hit Control Home to go back up to the top of my data set, and we look at our ethnicity filter, now this looks much better. This looks correct. No more truncated values. We actually have clean data that we can do some real work with. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the filter from ethnicity. And now we've got some nice clean data. So the next thing I want to do is I want to fix this capitalization issue that we got going on, right? Because if we look at our name list, some of the names are in what we call proper case, right, with the first letter capitalized. And then some of them are all caps. So some of them are capitalized with the first letter, some of them are all caps, and that looks kind of ugly, right? It's not really hurting anything. It's technically okay, but I want to make it so that all the names look like this with just the first letter capitalized. So how can I do that? Well, we're going to use what we call a formula. And you've probably heard of this. You've probably heard of Excel formulas that allow you to manipulate the data in your workbook, in your worksheet. And Excel formulas are really kind of the powerhouse of Excel. So far, like mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, formulas are the powerhouse of Excel. And so far, we've really just been working with data that already exists. We haven't really added anything. But that's what we're going to do now. We're going to create a new column. We're going to create a new column that is going to fix our capitalization problem. Okay? Mattel says, what's the difficulty of doing this in SQL version inside of a SQL versus inside of a spreadsheet application like Excel? Well, I mean, I know SQL really well, so I mean, this would be fairly trivial for me to do in SQL, but still, I would probably do it in Excel. Just because it's easier to work with sometimes it's just easier to work with a GUI interface rather than having to write code for everything. So rather than having to write each command as code, why isn't it sometimes just easier to click a button? And you have if you're working within a GUI, you have certain expectations and controls that you don't necessarily have when you're writing your own code. Excel is going to be holding your hand a little bit and watching out for you in ways that writing a SQL state, like SQL doesn't care what you're trying to do. It's just going to do it. Whereas Excel will often warn you if you're trying to do something stupid or something inadvisable, I should say. And so that's the nice thing about doing this sort of thing in Excel is that there's some guardrails, you've got some extra checks, you've got some built-in analytics like what we saw here, where it's giving us the summarized lists of things that are in our data set ordered in a specific way without us having to try to tell it to do those things. And so there are certain advantages. I mean, as a SQL developer, I still prefer to do this kind of work in Excel. Not everybody does. Some folks are, hardcore, code only type folks. But if you know Excel, I would say this is the better option. Bombaloni says, would you want to remove duplicates again just in case? Yes, actually, I think we are going to want to do that. That's a good point because now that we fixed these truncations, we probably did create some duplicate rows because before there may be a row for a truncated value and then a row for a non-truncated value. But now that we fixed that problem, we might have some duplicates again. That's a good point. So there's no harm in doing it again. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click in cell A1. I'm going to click remove duplicates and let's see if we get any more. So my data has headers. I'm choosing all the columns like we did before and I click OK. All right, no duplicates found. So yeah, I think we're okay. Luckily, it looks like the truncated values were isolated to 2012. So when we got rid of the duplicate values before, it fixed itself because all those values were just in 2012. Craig says, "Hey, mine, quick question. When replacing black non-Hispanic with black non-Hispanic non-truncated, I keep getting black non-Hispanic anic. Ah, yes. I love that you got that problem because that illustrates exactly what I was talking about. I'm going to do a Control F here again and a replace. So, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? That's because when you did your replace, you didn't do match entire cell contents, probably. That's my guess, is that maybe you didn't do match entire cell contents. But it does show how, yeah, it does show how find and replace can get weird. You can always Control Z and undo that problem. Yeah. And be careful doing a full sheet replace. Exactly. Like changing Asia could get into the name column. Right. So if we were to say, if we were doing something with like the word Asia, you could end up accidentally replacing something in the name column, which again, that's why we did match entire cell contents, to make sure that we're finding this exact value and replacing it with this exact value. We aren't going to replace anything that's a partial word, or, like anything that's a partial match with a partial match. Yeah. So that's why we did match entire cell contents, for that very reason. Because otherwise things can get weird and maybe you don't even notice. Craig says that was it. I'm using an earlier version of Excel. Yeah. I am using Office 365 Excel. You may be using something earlier, which may have a slightly different layout for the toolbar. So yeah, that could be it as well. But good catch there. Good troubleshooting, Craig. Okay, so we were just talking about how actually we want to use a formula to fix this issue with capitalization. We want to convert all these things that are in all caps, all these names that are in all caps. I want to convert them to be proper case. And the best way to do that in Excel is by using a formula. Let's get weird. And formulas really let you do anything, any calculation you want to do, whether it's mathematical, whether you're working with a string, whether you're converting something into hex code or binary, whether you are friggin' baking a cake. It doesn't really matter. You can do it with a formula. And before we start writing formula, let me think about which way I want to do this. No, we'll do the formula first, and then I'll show you this other thing. So there's a couple different ways I can write a formula. The first and probably easiest way is I can just start typing in a cell. So I'm going to go over here a few cells over, and I can just start typing. And the way Excel recognizes a formula is with the equals sign. So I can click in a cell, type equals, and Excel is going to recognize that I'm going to do some logic. So for a basic formula, I could say 2, so equals 2 plus 2. And when I hit enter, that will calculate to 4. So if I click here in the cell, I can see that in the cell it shows the value of 4. But up here in what we call the formula bar, it actually shows what I originally typed in, which is 2 plus 2. Okay? And I can do other things too. I can do something like, I can do any mathematical operation, really. 100 times 100. Okay? That'll give me 10,000. Basic calculator math. I can do stuff like that. And then what if I wanted to multiply this cell by this cell? So I wanted to multiply this 4 times this 10,000. Well, I can do that too. I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to type the word sum. And as soon as I start typing, you can see it starts to bring up some potential options for me. We've got substitute, subtotal, sum if, sum product, all these sorts of things that we could do. And these are all functions. These are all functions. These are Excel functions that are built in that can do tasks for us. I'm just going to do a sum here. And if I was writing in JavaScript, so go cast your mind to JavaScript for a second. If I was writing in JavaScript and I wanted to call a function and pass in some arguments, how would I write that function? How would I call that function and maybe pass in an argument? What would that look like if I was writing JavaScript? If I have a function already and I want to call it, what do I do? How do I invoke a function? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we write the name of the function, we do a parenthesis, and a closing parenthesis, right? Open, close parenthesis. And then inside of that parenthesis, we put the arguments that we want to pass in, right? Function name, and then we pass the parameters. And that's exactly what you do in Excel. There is no difference. You call functions the exact same way in Excel that you do in JavaScript. So if I want to sum these two numbers, I can click on the first cell, which is this one right here. And as soon as I do, we can see it puts this funky blue sort of a line around it. And it puts the name of the cell J2, in my function. And if I want to sum that along with the cell below it, I can just drag down by one. So first cell, second cell. I'm dragging my mouse. I'm clicking and dragging. First, second, and then I let go. And now inside of my function, I'm passing in two arguments, right? I'm passing in the first one and the second one. And if I wanted to sum these separate, actually, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say, to be exactly like JavaScript with no difference, I'm calling the function. Here's my first argument, which is cell J2. And here's my, and then a comma, right? And then here's my second argument, cell J3. And then when I hit enter, what do I get? I get the sum. Robodom says, so you're basically doing coding on an Excel sheet. Yes, that's the secret, is that Excel, you may not have caught it before, but when I was talking about Excel, I said it was a low code solution for data analytics. I didn't say it was a no code solution, because Excel is at its core is using the exact same logic that you are using when you write JavaScript. And what we'll see later at the end, if I have time, is that you can literally write JavaScript in Excel. Like literal, actually it's TypeScript technically, but it's all the same thing. It's JavaScript with a funny hat. You can literally write TypeScript scripts and run them in Excel, because Excel already has this logic built in. You're invoking a function, you're passing in arguments, and you're getting a result. You're calling that function, and there's your result. All right. Yeah, you can even, as NB says, you can even write your own custom functions in Excel, because Excel is just code. It's just code with a nice, pretty face on it. It has a nice business face, but in the it's just, you're just coding. There's no difference. So if you know how to code, you can use Excel. Yeah, that's the secret. That's what people don't realize, who are scared of Excel, is that you already know how to do this. And so 21 asks, if you wanted to apply a formula to multiple rows, is there a way to reference its respective row in the arguments? Like sum, this cell A, this cell B? Yes. And that's what I'm just showing you an example here of how to invoke an Excel function, or how to call an Excel function. But what we're going to do for our data set is exactly that. We're going to use the same formula on every single row in order to fix our capitalization problem, because we're going to want to apply the same formula over and over and over again to correct that capitalization on every single line. And so that's what we're going to do. 21, 21, 21. Yeah. Rusty says formulas are a coding language. Yes, they are. Yes, they absolutely are. If you've ever looked at a really complex Excel formula, you'll see the coding logic. And so let's say you're like, okay, well, yeah, I want to fix our capitalization problem and I want to use a formula to do it, but I don't know what formula to use. There's so many functions. We just saw that as soon as I started typing, I typed the letter I typed the letter S, and this is just the amount of functions for the letter S. Like, what do I do? I don't know what formula to use. Well, Excel is here to help. If you're not sure what formula to use to do something that you want to do, you can click on this little function button right here next to the formula bar. So this is the formula bar, like I said before. Click on this little F for insert function. And when you do, you can search for a function. So it says type a brief description of what you want to do and then click go. So what I want to do is I want to, let's see, I want to, basically what I want to do is I want to change these from uppercase to proper case, right? I'm working with strings. I want to change it to proper case. So I can start typing proper, and then I hit go or enter. And then there we go. First result, it tells me what the function is. It says it converts a text string to proper case, the first letter in each word to uppercase, all other letters to lowercase. That should work, right? Cool. What if I wanted to do something else? What if I wanted to make them all lowercase? So I'm going to type lower, hit enter. Oh yeah, first result. Okay, converts all letters in a text string to lowercase. So this tells you what it does. But really, the one I want is proper. So I'll click go. And so, yes, that's the one I want to use. So let's test it out. Let's see if it works before we use it on the whole data set. So I'll click OK. And then it even gives me a little helper box where I can, it'll set, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to set up the formula for me. I don't have to, worry about typing it in by hand and maybe messing it up. It's going to do the whole thing for me. So it says, all right, what text do you want to convert to proper case? So I'm just going to choose this cell right here. I can click in a cell, right, like this. And then it says, all right, you want to do D2. It's going to show me the current value of the cell, which is Geraldine in all caps. And then it's going to show me what it's going to look like after I apply the formula. So after I apply that Excel function, oh yeah, it's going to convert it to proper case. So I'll click OK. Maybe click OK. Sorry, it appears to be frozen, which is super fun. Come on, Excel. There we go. I had to hit enter. It wouldn't let me, my mouse wouldn't let me click. But I hit enter, and then it's showing me the result of the formula. And we can see that when I click in the cell, it's calling the proper function. We're passing in cell D2 as an argument, and then the result, when I hit enter, is correct. So I think this formula is going to work. I think this is what we want to use. This Excel function is what we want to use. So I'll delete it from here. And basically what I want to do is create a new column here to the right with the corrected capitalization for each cell. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll create a new header up here. I'm going to call it proper case name. So that'll be the name of our new column. No worries, RoboDom. Thanks for popping in. So this is our new column. And then I can start typing my formula. So I'm going to say proper. Oops, I always do that wrong. Accidentally, I always hit enter too soon. All right, proper. And then open close parentheses. And inside of those parentheses, I can click and put my cursor in the parentheses. And I'm going to click in the cell. Okay, Geraldine. Now, but you might say, I want to do that for every single cell. I want to do it for every single one. Well, remember our handy little handle. If I hover my cursor over the bottom right corner of this cell, I can copy down that formula just like I did our text before, right? Remember, I could drag here and I could copy down the text. You can do the exact same thing for formulas. But you might say, wouldn't that just copy down the word Geraldine? Wouldn't that just copy down the word Geraldine? Because we're referencing this cell in our formula. Let's try it and let's see what happens. If I grab the handle and I drag our formula down a few rows, look at that. at that. Copper lily. What happened here? It worked. It didn't copy down Geraldine. It's looking at the matching cell on each row and fixing that one. Huh, isn't that interesting? So I'm going to click into Guadalupe here. And if I look at the formula on this line, it says proper D7. So that means column D, row 7. Column D, row 7. If I go down one more, proper D8. Column D, row 8. So Excel is smart. Excel knows that if you put a formula in one cell and then you copy that formula down or across or whatever, it keeps what we call the reference. It keeps the reference consistent to the row that you're currently on or the column that you're currently in. So if I go down one row, it's going to move the formula reference down one row as well. If I go down 3 rows, it's going to move it down 3 rows. So Excel keeps the row and column consistent based on the formula that you're copying. All right, so I can copy it down some more and we'll see it works. Now, there's ways to make it not do that. For example, if you want to keep the name Geraldine in every single cell here, there's a way to do that, but we're not going to talk about that today. It's a little bit above the pay grade for the moment. But if you're curious about that, feel free to send me a message and I'll show it to you. But just know that when you're copying a formula, dragging it down, Excel is smart enough to remember where the point that you're referencing and keep that point consistent as you copy it down. Okay, yeah, and so like we talked about before, I could keep dragging this down. Drag. I could keep dragging this down, but that's boring. That's going to take forever. It's going to take all day. So again, there must be a better way to do this. And especially if I'm adding more data to this, I know we want to add at least one more column here, which will just be like the first letter of each name. And so as I'm making this data set bigger and bigger, it's going to get harder and harder to work with. And so I think what I want to do, especially when I go to analyze this, when I go to create graphs and charts from this data, I want to give it a little bit more structure. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this data to what we call a table. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that in just a minute. So what I can do is click really any cell in my data set. And I'm going to say insert. And I'm going to say table. Okay. And when I do that, it's going to give me a selection box around my entire data. And it's going to show me the rows and columns that I'm going to be putting into a table. And it says my table has headers because it says, oh yeah, looks like you've got some headers on your data, got some column names. And so that box is checked. And then I'm going to click OK. Ah, look at this. Suddenly we're getting fancy. Suddenly things look a little bit more structured. We've got a nice header row up here. We've got drop downs automatically applied to all of our columns. We've got lovely colors here, which help us tell our rows apart a little bit more. Everything's automatically formatted with some nice colors. And so what a table is basically Excel knows that this is a set group of rows and columns, and it's always going to treat them as a unit. So the nice thing about this is that now I can apply this formula that we made, this case name formula, proper. I can apply this to my entire data set with one click because Excel is smart, like I said. So instead of taking the handle and dragging it down like I have been doing, I'm going to take the handle and I'm going to double click on it. So that one little, that little thing in the bottom corner where it turns your cursor into a plus sign, I'm going to double click on that. Boom. Ta-da. The formula has just been applied to our entire data set with a single double click. And if I can confirm that by hitting Control End like I did before, and whoops, that went to the bottom. Doesn't always work. That's okay. We can scroll down to the bottom of our data. There we go. And we can see that the formula has been applied to every single row in our data set with just one double click on that handle. Saying boom makes computer software work, proven fact. Yeah. And so if you ever need to copy a formula very quickly to every single row, just double click on that handle. And Excel, again, is smart. It knows where your data ends, and it's able to copy it down to the end of your data and no farther. So I identified the last row, I double clicked on the handle, and it said, all right, boom. And it copied it down, 18,000 rows. Okay. And we can see it's still keeping the proper reference. This formula here on the last row is referencing this value right here. Oh, yes. And so instead of control and, we can do control arrow, right? Yes. So control arrow. Yeah, when I do control arrow, so holding down the control key and control up arrow, like on your arrow keys on your keyboard, that takes me to the top, and control down arrow takes me to the bottom of the table. Yeah. And yeah, I'm happy to go over how we built this table again. And yes, and I'll answer your question in just a second, NB. So how we did the table. I clicked in really anywhere inside of my data set, because again, Excel is smart. It knows, it has a good feel for the boundaries of your data. It kind of knows where it starts and ends. It's not always right, but generally it's pretty good. You could always select your entire data set if you want to be very sure that it's going to grab all the data, but you don't necessarily have to. You could click in, say, cell A1, as long as it's inside your data, and then you can say insert, and then you can say table. I can't click it because there's already a table here, but say table, and then it should automatically select the boundaries of your data, and then you just click OK, and it creates a table for you. Now, again, you could manually select the boundaries of the table if you wanted to. You could say, if you wanted to create a table for just like one section of your data, you could select it by clicking and dragging. Just anywhere in the cell, you can click and drag to create a selection, and then say table and make a table out of that. I don't know why you would want to, but you don't have to. You can click in your data and click table. Candy Pants says, I love this channel. Oh, thank you, Candy Pants. And NB says, can you do that double click thing? He means by, or they mean by clicking on the handle and copying down a formula. Can you do that double click thing without converting it to a table? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, you can, but you have to be very careful when you're doing it in general, or without a table in general, is if anywhere in here there was a blank row. So for example, if a value next to the column where you're copying this formula was blank, Excel will sometimes stop there because it thinks it's the end of the data. So if you don't have a table boundary around this, if Excel doesn't know that this is one single object, a table, if you haven't done that first, then Excel might think, oh, if this value right here was blank, and you're doing the double click thing on the handle, Excel might think, oh, your data, this cell's blank, your data ends here, and it will stop copying the formula. So you have to be very careful of that, which is why another reason why tables are very helpful, because that gives Excel explicit instructions that this is where your data starts and ends. This is the boundaries of this table are the boundaries of your data. And so it doesn't have to guess. And so you can really cut down on errors by putting things in a table first. Hope that helps. And then and the next thing I'm going to show you is another benefit of tables. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a specific column that just has the first letter of the name. Because if I want to do some analytics on, like, I want to see, the most popular first letter of, female baby names in 2014. I don't care what the whole name was. I want to see, like, okay, like, for example, is the letter A always the most popular um, first letter for female baby names, like over a long period of time? Have there been changes in letter popularity? Do certain ethnicities prefer certain letters to start their baby names? This almost sounds like a code words problem. Yeah, that's what a lot of analytics is solving these types of logic puzzles, or digging these types of insights out of data. So I want to create a column for the first letter of the name only. So I'm going to create another column header here, and you might say, but wait, that's not in your table. What's going to happen? Let's see what happens. If I just start typing, let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to start typing. I'm going to say first letter. I want this new column to be called first letter, and then I'm going to hit enter. What happened there? It just straight up created a new column for us in the table. That's in my table. This brand new column has been added to my table because, again, Excel is smart. It read your mind. Exactly. Excel is smart. It knows that if I am typing something directly to the right of my table, then I probably want to add it to the table. I didn't need to go in and highlight the whole thing again and say, new table or anything like that, or manually change the boundaries, because Excel's like, oh yeah, you're adding a new column over here to the right. Yeah, you probably want that in your table, don't you? And Alsha asks, how did you get the formula to apply to the whole table again? Well, for this column, we double clicked on the handle. So previously when we were dragging it down manually, by clicking on the handle in the lower right and dragging it down, well, you can do the same thing by double clicking. And what that will do is just immediately apply it to the entire column. And NB says, does it do the same thing with adding rows to the table? Yes, it does. So we aren't going to add any rows to this table, but you can try it yourself by going down to the bottom of the table and just starting to type. And when you do, it'll add a new row. So it automatically knows that if you're typing next to a table, whether it's a row or a column, it says, all right, yeah, you want to probably add that, don't you? And so it adds it for you. So also you want to make sure that you've clicked in the cell that you want to copy, and that you are clicking on the handle. So that lower right-hand corner, which turns your cursor into a little plus, that's how it copies things down. Now, if that's not working for you, I'm just about to show you another way that you can apply formulas to an entire table. So if that's not working, that's okay. Well, we're going to learn another way that's even simpler. All right, so first letter. Again, let's say that I'm not quite sure how I want to do this. If I want to just grab the first letter of a string, I'm not entirely sure how to do that. So once again, I'm going to go over here to my little function button, insert function, and I can search for it. So I'm going to say maybe string. Okay, it's giving us a bunch of string functions because I'm working with strings. So like I'm just saying, all right, what do I want to do? I want to work with a string. So give me all the functions associated with strings. And so I can look through all of these functions. Oh, and here's concatenate, my favorite. You don't actually need this though, but we've got a bunch of options here. We can filter XML. So if you've got XML, you want to filter XML, HLOOKUP, indirect. Oh, wait, here we go. Left returns the specified number of characters from the start of a text string. That sounds like something we might want, right? If I was doing this in JavaScript, I would basically be saying, all right, give me the the left, two characters or whatever, or the value at index 0. So this is basically doing the same thing. It's saying, all right, we've got a function here. We start at the left, and we give it the count of characters that we want to return. So I think this will work. So I'm going to say okay, and it's put the function in the box for me, and it's giving me the fields that I need to fill out. So what text do I want to essentially get the first character of? I can click in the cell, and you'll notice this looks a little different than what we did before, right? It's not giving me a specific cell value. It's just giving me this text. Don't worry about that for now. It's still showing the correct value there. And then the number of characters that I want is 1. So what text do I want to work with? This. And the number of characters that I want to retrieve is 1. Okay, cool. So I'm going to click OK. Well, the OK button isn't working for me for some reason. I can hit enter and do the same thing. Oh, hello. What happened? What did it do? Sorcery. Yeah, it applied this formula to every single row in the table. So if we do that control down arrow, we can see it automatically applied it to every single row in the table. Now, why? Because we started out with a column in the table. So we've already defined our table. We created it. We created a new column in the table, and we created a new formula in that column. Because Excel knows the boundaries of our data, because we put it in a table, it says, oh, well, yeah, if you're typing in a formula here, you're going to want it in the whole column. You're going to want to apply it to all your data. And Excel's like, you've told me where all your data is, so I'm just going to copy that formula down for you, bro. You don't got to worry about anything. It's going to apply it to the whole column automatically. And that's why this text looks a little different here. Instead of referencing a specific cell, since we've created a column, Excel can just say, all right, for every single value in the child's first name column, it's going to apply this formula. Now, you don't have to know, you don't really have to understand that. That's fine. But just know that if you create a table, you're going to have a better application, easier time applying formulas, easier time keeping formulas consistent. And if let's say I were to change this formula, right? Let's say I change it. I want the first 2 characters instead. I don't really, but I'm just going to change this formula in the one cell. I'm going to change it to get the first 2 characters, and I'm going to hit enter. When I do it again, it updates the entire column. Any change I make is going to be applied to the entire column, even if I'm not clicking in the first cell, even if I'm clicking down here. 4 characters, whatever. Boom. It's going to apply to the entire column. And so this is going to also help you avoid errors. Because if you're not working inside of a table and you accidentally change a formula in one cell without copying it to the other cells, you could end up with bad data, right? You could end up with improper calculations. You could end up with some formulas in one place and some formulas in another place. And so that's why tables are good, because it's going to keep your column in sync. It's going to keep the exact same formula in the entire column without you having to do anything. All right. NB says, I'm disappointed that Google Sheets doesn't have the table option like Excel does. Yeah, that's one odd thing about Sheets, is it can do pivot tables, but it can't do regular tables, which is so weird. I don't know why, because tables are so helpful in keeping data consistency. And tables do the exact same thing for formatting as well. So if you apply formatting to, a particular cell, you can apply it to the entire column all at once. So same thing for just style. Rusty Guy says, can you use the proper case cell to always get upper? Yes, you can. So just thinking logically here, let's say I did want to convert all of these to uppercase. What do you think I might change this formula to? What do you think I might put here instead of proper? Yeah, let's try upper. And I'll hit enter. And it replaced it. Now, notice that because I replaced, notice that when I replaced this with upper, it didn't replace the entire column. And that's because when we originally built this formula, we built it before we built the table. So that's a little nuance there, but that's okay. We can still apply it just like we did before. We're going to double click on that lower right handle. And as soon as we do, it's going to copy it all the way down just like we did before. So no problem. Is there an equivalent VS Code / JavaScript function finder? There's extensions. So VS Code is pretty good at that. VS Code will help you find functions similar in a similar way to Excel. Like when you start typing, it will kind of try to autocomplete for you a little bit. And there's extensions you can use for that in VS Code. If you just want to figure out what functions do, or like methods do, like built-in methods, you could always use the MSDN, which is the Microsoft, what was it, MSDN? It's like a Wikipedia for functions, kind of. I forget what it stands for, but yeah, you can use that. Online, manually searching for functions. There's extensions you can install in VS Code as well. Yeah, Microsoft Developer Network. Okay, yeah, I forget. And so, yeah, you could do the same thing for lower, upper, whatever. I'm going to undo this because I actually do want them in proper case. But yeah, you can do all sorts of things. And again, if you ever need help figuring out what to do, or what formula to use, close that. You can just click the little F icon and just search for what you want to do, like work with strings. And that'll give you, the description of everything that you can do with strings. Or let's say you want to do something with hex code, right? Hexadecimals. You could type hex, and that'll give you functions that you can do with hex code. Or let's say you want to do statistics, really complex statistical operations. If you're a data scientist, you can do, chi-tests or forecasts, or, really complex. You can do calculus. I mean, you can do anything. Calculus. No, I guess it doesn't like me searching for calculus, but you can also select by category too. So for example, math and trigonometry, statistical, information engineering. So if you're an engineer, you can maybe find some functions in here that could help you out. I don't know what many of these are. I'm not an engineer, but you can search by category if you don't know kind of what to put in the box here. So yeah. Okay, so now I think we have most of what we want. I'm going to change this back to only looking for first letter. And now that we kind of have our data set, number one, cleaned up. Number two, we have some additional fields that we want to do some analytics on. Now, in the last 45 minutes or so, we're actually going to get to do some visualizations on this data now that it's finally cleaned up and kind of ready to go. So, as a reward for y'all sticking around, now we're going to go into the real soup, right? To the real stuff of what Excel can do. Now that we have a nice clean data set, let's actually do some stuff with it. So if I want to visualize this data a little bit better, right? Before we were looking for people named Claire. We could kind of filter down, we could filter our data, and we could kind of look at it like in a table format. But what if I actually wanted to summarize this data? What if I wanted to see how many total people are named Claire for every single year? So for 2011, 2012, 2013, I want to get a sum of how many people were named Claire for each year, because I want to see the trend. I want to see is Claire becoming more popular? Am I popular? Or is Claire becoming less popular and I'm going to be an old lady someday? I don't know. I want to know. I want to know the answer. Now, there's a couple ways I could do this. I could say, all right, these two rows are 2011, so I'm going to select the two rows for 2011, and I can actually look down here in the bottom right. So my mouse is down here in the bottom right corner, right next to my video, right next to my camera image. And it'll show you the sum down there. And the sum of those two numbers is 62. I could write a formula to do it. I could over here to the right, I could say sum, and then I can drag the range that I want to sum up. And that's not even going to work right because I've got this filtered, so that's not even a good option. I could do sum, boom, and then comma, and then click the next one, and then close parenthesis. Yeah, that gives me 62. But I would have to do that for every single year, and I would have to do it manually, which sucks. Again, that's not fun. There has to be a better way to quickly get sums and analysis of this table data. So I'm going to take this filter off. And instead of doing all this by hand, Elliot says, can we change the names in child's first name to proper case directly without adding a new column? That is something you can do in Microsoft Word. You can do case conversion like that in Microsoft Word. It's not something that you can do in Excel. What you could do is you could copy this, copy the results of this formula. So I would just select this entire row, and then I could paste it over this row right here. I could just copy this and replace, and paste it over top of this and get rid of those originals. But as you're about to see, what I'm going to do next is that's not really going to matter because we're not even going to be looking at this anymore. We're going to say, this is old news. I don't want to look at this raw data anymore. I want something that's actually going to give me some insights. So what I'm going to do is go to the Insert tab. I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to say Pivot Table. So first, I'm going to make sure I'm clicked. You can click anywhere in your table. It doesn't matter where. Click anywhere in your table. Go to Insert, and then go to Pivot Table. And it's going to say Select a table or range. And so automatically, it's going to have selected our base table, Table 1, which is fine. And then we're going to say choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. And generally, you're going to want it to be on a new worksheet. So say Table 1, new worksheet, okay. And then we get something completely new. This is interesting. This is something new. But it's the best feature of Microsoft Excel. This is what's called a pivot table. What it does, and I'm going to change my window size here a little bit so you can see everything. What it does is it gives you a blank canvas upon which you can basically mess around. And you can pull in the data from your source table in whatever order you want and rearrange it, put things in rows and columns, add things as values, get sums and counts and averages, all within a live table that updates as you make changes. Now, this sounds complicated, but I'm going to show you exactly how it works. So let's think of something that we want to do. Let's say that I want to see the count of people that were named Claire over the years. So I want some columns that have each of the years, right? 2011, 2012, blah, blah, blah. I want to see those as columns. And then I want to see whatever, maybe whatever. Well, actually, I want to see ethnicity as the rows. So I want to kind of get a feel for whether different ethnicities use the name Claire. So those can be the rows. And then the actual values in the table should be the sum of people named Claire for each year. So let's do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say ethnicity. We want that for our rows. So I can click on the ethnicity field, and I'm going to drag that into our rows. This box down here says rows, so I can drag and drop. And when I do that, we see each of the ethnicities suddenly appears. Boop. I'm going to take year of birth, and I'm going to put that in our columns. And then magically, I suddenly get all the years. And then I only want the people named Claire. So I can take child's first name. Actually, I'm going to go for proper case name. That's the field that we created with the proper case. I'm going to take proper case name. I'm going to put that in our filters. And suddenly, like magic, I get a drop down filter with all the names in it. We're almost done. Now I want to get the count, or I guess the sum of the count, right? The sum of the count of all the girls named Claire across this trend. So I can take my count field, which is numeric. Remember, these are numbers. So these are all like, right, this is a string. Okay, the names are a string, years, those are years. But the count is a number. So it can have, you can do math on a count, right? You can sum it together. So I can take the count field and drag it into values. We have our values field down here in the bottom right. Boom. Okay, so now that I've done that, suddenly we get values in our pivot table. Now, this seems a little high to me. So I want to see, all right, how is it calculating these values? Essentially what it's doing is it's saying, all right, for Asian Pacific Islanders, oh, well, that's because I haven't filtered by name yet. I was like, that's way too many people, but I haven't applied my filter, duh. All right, so last thing I want to do is then filter down to just people named Claire. So I have my filter up top. I can click on the drop down just like we did before. I'm going to search for the name Claire. There it is. I click on it. I say, okay. That looks better. Now I'm seeing a trend. I can see that Asian Pacific Islanders seem to kind of like the name Claire a little bit more around 2017. So did Hispanic people. And then so did non-Hispanic people. And then at the bottom, it gives me a total. So for each year, we can see how popular the name Claire has been. It looks like it kind of peaked in popularity around 2017. I don't know if there was a literary character named Claire or something like that. Who knows, right? But from this, we can start to get some easy, quick analytics about what's actually in our data in a summarized format. That's what pivot tables can do for us. Yeah, it's automagical engineering, isn't it? All right, so we can pick a different name too. We can pick a different name too. Let's say, all right, Game of Thrones. Remember Game of Thrones really got popular around this time? So what's a Game of Thrones name? What about Daenerys? We could try Daenerys. D-A-E. Okay, so that's not in the data set. What about Khaleesi? Right? Oh, there it is. Look. So the data set does have Khaleesi. So let's see how popular Khaleesi is. So yeah. Absolutely no one named their kid Khaleesi up until 2016. Right? And then it started to get, this data only goes up until 2019, but it definitely is starting to become a thing here. So we can see it's a short trend, but it's definitely a trend because before 2016, absolutely no one in their right mind named their child Khaleesi. And then after Game of Thrones started getting popular, people started. Then I assume they immediately stopped after the finale, but who knows? That's my cat's name is Daenerys. Yeah, so a little quick micro trend of Khaleesi. Oh, your cat's name is Khaleesi? That's awesome. Sadie Who says, how do you show rows with 0 values? Well, what you could do there is you can apply filters to the actual values themselves. So that's a little bit more complicated. We probably won't do that here, but you can definitely apply um, filters to be based on values. So we could put another filter here for the like the specific count values. So you could filter by a specific value. You can do you can filter on pretty much anything. You can filter, you can sort, you can manipulate this data in pretty much any way that you would possibly want to. Yeah. You can only hear the name Khaleesi in the Monarch's voice from Venture Brothers. Oh, you want to see you want to see Matthews? Okay, yeah, we can do that. Math. Yeah, so Matthew. Now, interesting here, we've got Matthew with one T and Matthew with two T's. What if I want to see them both? Right? Because it's essentially the same name, just a different spelling. So what I can do here is I can click select multiple items. And what that will allow me to do is choose both Matthew and Matthew with two T's. So I've chosen this select multiple items. And then when I do that, we can see up here it says multiple items. So this is giving me the counts for both. Look at that, I'm famous. Yeah. And so we can kind of see that the name Matthew is unfortunately trending downward. There's fewer Matthews over time, unfortunately, but it's giving us a better picture of this trend, of the overall count. And then even by ethnicity, we can see overall count change in Matthew's popularity. And, visually looking at this, right? Visually looking at this, it tells me some things. And we could even do, like, let's say I want to look at gender, right? I want to consider gender as part of my counts. So let's drag gender in as an additional filter. Or no, let's do this. I want to see gender as like an additional slicer in my rows. So I want to see all the females and then each of their ethnicities. And then I want to see all the males and each of their ethnicities. So I'm going to take gender and I'm going to drag it down to the rows and I'm going to put it in just above ethnicity. So you can see there's that little green line just above ethnicity. That's going to put it in above that. Oh, I let go too soon. There we go. So now I've got male as a category and then all the ethnicities. Now give me like a gender neutral name. What's a good gender, like Taylor? Let's look at Taylor. Yeah, exactly. Strain says Taylor. So we'll search for Taylor. There we go. And that's been selected. I can say okay. It's showing me that Taylor is selected. And now I get an additional breakdown of female Taylors versus male Taylors. Now, what's interesting is that in New York, remember, this is just New York, this is not like the whole country, that Taylor is a much more popular female name, probably because of Taylor Swift, but who knows? I've known both male and female Taylors, but, it could be either. Great minds and all, yeah. All right, what's another gender neutral name? Thank you for the follow, Dev Panda and Zhao Bang and Jerry. I've missed a few follows. I apologize. Dev Panda, Sadie Who, Zhao Bang, Jerry, Wilder Hives. Thank you so much for the follows, folks. It's Pat. All right, we look at Pat. Pat. Okay, so they're saying Patrick, so we're probably not going to get many females there. What about Mackenzie? That's another good one, I think. I'm going to spell it wrong. Mackenzie? Like that? Oh, Chris. Maybe Chris. Yeah, let's do Chris. So, Chris, Christian, Christina, Christine, Christopher, Christy. All right, we could select all of these. We'll look at Chris and we'll see. Oh, yeah, Riley's a good one. Okay, so for Chris, we're only getting males. Let's do Riley. There we go. That's a good one. Yeah. So Riley was really popular up until 2015. for both males and females. And then gosh, it absolutely dropped off. Probably when did Inside Out come out? That movie Inside Out? When did Inside Out come out? Somebody Google it. Let me know. I need data. That Pixar movie Inside Out. 2015. Look. Look at that. It makes sense. It's all coming together. So, Inside Out, my new conspiracy theory. Inside Out came out in 2015. It came out in 2015. And so after that, nobody named their male child Riley anymore. Was it 2019 or 2015? Did I just draw a false assumption there? I need to. Somebody's saying 20. Strain says 2015. Alicia says 2019. Help me. Okay, I'm gonna have to Google it. I need to know. No, it was 2015. Google says June. Yeah. So look, we're getting insights from our data. So the movie Inside Out, which had a female protagonist named Riley, came out in 2015. After the year 2015, people utterly stopped naming their male children. People utterly stopped naming their male children Riley because the character from Inside Out because the character from Inside Out was a female named Riley. And so people kept naming their female children Riley. And actually the name looks like the name got more popular. Look, if we look at the totals for women, for females, after 2015, it got crazy popular, the name Riley. And it absolutely got decimated for males. So that's pop culture for you. But this is showing us how a pivot table like this is showing us how a pivot table like this can absolutely give us immediate insights on the data that we're gathering, right? We can add rows, we can add additional criteria like the gender thing, which has given us some more insights already. We can add filters, we can move rows and columns around. And let's actually look at first letters too. Another thing I wanted to look at was just like first letters for women and for females and males. Vangelis says, funny how randomly in 2018 suddenly pops up again for males with 14 and then it's gone again in 2019. Yeah, who knows, right? Data is weird. But we do see there's a little bit of a tasty trend here, right? Yeah. Quadshot says, my great grandfather's name was Sierra. Yeah, so it's showing us now it's a primarily female name. And think of like the name Carol. My great grandfather was named Carol, a male. And then now we generally think of Carol as a female name. No worries, 21. Yeah, no. Enjoy the rest of your day. Pivot tables are blowing your mind. Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, Ashley. Ashley used to be a male name. Now it's more female. Exactly. Exactly. So I want to look at first letters. So what I'm going to do instead is I want to say, all right, instead of the count field that they gave us in the source data set, I want to use my um, I want to use my first letter and see what first letters are most popular for males and females by ethnicity. Okay, so what I can do is get rid of the field that I'm using for my values right now. So I'm going to take this field and I'm going to just drag it. I can just drag it out of the box. It doesn't really matter where I put it. You can click and drag and just remove it from the box. And so my values are gone. And now, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm thinking I'm going to have to rearrange my table a little bit. All right, what I'm going to do here is might be a little bit of a mess, but I'm going to take off my filter as well because I don't need to filter by name anymore. I can drag this out. And I'm also going to, well, we'll just try this. The nice thing about pivot tables is you don't have to think of what it's going to look like ahead of time. You can just drop stuff in and see what happens. So let's do it. I'm going to take first letter and I'm going to drag that in below ethnicity. This is going to make it really long, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to take first letter again. I'm going to put that in my values field. Now you might say, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Well, because I wanted it as a label, and then I wanted to count the number of instances of that letter. So this is going to say, all right, for female Asian and Pacific Islanders, the letter A shows up 33 times in 2011. So for female Asian and Pacific Islanders, the letter A shows up 33 times, shows up 38, 36, 41. So this is showing us the letter and then dragging the same field into the values field sums the number of instances of that letter as a count. So it just says, all right, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 33 instances of the letter A. Hey, Syntax, welcome to the stream. Quadchat says, I'm so rewatching this stream for absorption. Yeah, I don't expect you, like I said at the beginning, I don't expect you to be able to just sit down and do this stuff off the rip. What I'm showing you is these are the types of things you can do. And so you might not remember how to do it when you get employed and or when you're, you get a new job and you're trying to look at this data. You might say, I don't remember exactly how to do this, but I know Mind Wolf showed us sometime that it is possible to do. So that's right. Mind Wolf said you could do this in Excel. Let me Google that. I'm going to Google that and watch a video and remind myself how to do it. So I'm just kind of showing you possibilities here, the types of things that you can do. And so this is kind of cluttered, right? There's a lot of numbers here. We've suddenly created a super crazy long table. So what I might do is move the ethnicity field. I'm going to move that up to filters. So now ethnicity is up in the filters. And so now my table is a lot smaller. So I can say, all right, if I just want to look at white non-Hispanic people and see what's the most popular letter for them. All right, so for white non-Hispanic people, we can see that for females, let's see, looks like the most popular letter is A. So if I look at the total for A, that looks like, yeah, female. Most popular letter for female names is A. If I look for males, looks like the most popular letter for the guys is, oh, also A. So we're talking your Aarons and your, Aarons and Arthurs and Anthonys, right? Now, let's say you're curious and you're like, okay, we've got all these females with the letter A. What about what names start with, say, let's see, what's a weird letter? What names start with the letter W? Like what female names start with the letter W? I don't even know. So you're like, what? Okay, what names could possibly make up this 14 total? Well, the cool thing is that it'll tell me. If I take this total here and I double click on it, watch. Boom. What happened there? It's created a whole new sheet for me with a table, and it's showing me those exact 14 rows that make up that total. That's called a drill down. Yeah, as Muckalek said, that's called a drill down. So in a pivot table, I'm going to go back to my other sheet here. I just changed back to the sheet that I was on. I said, I want to look at what data is making up this total. I want to know what goes into these 14 values. So I double click on it, and Excel automatically generates a new sheet with the rows from the source data that make up that table. So we can see, looks like we've got Willa and Willow. Winnie, we got one Winnie. Willa, Willow, and Winnie. Those seem to be the winners. Willow, Winnie, Willow. I can't even say it. It's a tongue twister. Willa, Willow, Winnie. Yep. Bob Maloney says, can you do that again? I blinked. Yeah. So I was in the pivot table and I was just looking at the values and I thought, let's look at Q. Let's do another one. We'll look at Q. What possibly could someone name their female child that starts with Q? Other than like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. I don't know the answer to that. So what makes up this total? I'm curious. So I could, if I wanted to, I could go back to my source table and I could filter, and apply a bunch of filters myself. Or I could just double click on this. So just double click on the cell in the pivot table. Boom. And yeah, it's Quinn. It's Quinn that makes up all of those 9 rows or whatever. Yeah, it's Quinn. And I feel embarrassed about this. I actually have a relative's child that's named Quinn, and I forgot about that until this very moment. Sorry, Quinny. I love you. Yeah. It's a great name, though. I like that name. It's a good name. So essentially, again, that's another powerful thing about pivot tables is that it can. Okay, Sarah. NB Matt says, so wait, that only showed the number of rows of W. How to make it show the count of all with that letter, though? I'm not quite sure I understand what you're going for there. You want to see count the number of rows of W, how to make it show the count of all with that letter. Can you ask your question in a different way? I'm not quite sure what you're asking for there. But yeah, again, the cool thing about pivot tables is that you can drill down to really any total that you see in a pivot table. So there's no question about what's making up these totals. Rusty says that's it's only the names that start with Q, not how many people it is. Well, let's think about it. So if I want the count, so essentially what I'm doing here, yeah, I'm getting the count of names, right? I'm getting the count of names that start with Q, not necessarily how many people there is. That I actually had before when I pulled in the count field. So let's pull out the count of first letter, take that away, and we'll put our count field back. So if we want the count of people, we can just simply switch the field. Now let's look at Q again. So we're going to do the same thing. I switched the field. I pulled out the count of first letter, and I pulled in the actual count of people from our source data set. So we swapped it out. Now let's go back to Q. I'm going to click on the total again. And now I actually get the count. So sum is 232, and that's what shows up on our pivot table. So I get the same rows, but I actually get the count of people, right? So it's just you can swap these. That's the nice thing about pivot tables is you can swap out this data as much as you want until you get exactly the view you're looking for. Michael X says, I wasn't here for the start, but one of the most valuable things you can do is a distinct count. We already did that actually, yeah. So we Corsator. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said that right. Thank you for the follow. So at the very beginning, when we were looking at the uh, original data set, like the one that we downloaded from the government website, it actually did have a bunch of duplicate rows. So we used the remove duplicates to get rid of those. And then what we were left with was actually the unique values in the data set. So we didn't have double counting. Yeah. So actually in this case, the letter A, no matter how you slice it, the letter A is still the most popular for women. Yep. People really like the letter A. Now for men, if we take a look here, we can see that it's actually the letter J. I'm assuming James and Jonathan and those types of names, classical names. Those are the most popular. But A is trailing pretty close as far as also M. So Michael, Matthew, those type of names, very popular. All right, so this is good and all. This is decent. But what I'd really like to see is I want to give this to my I want to give this to my boss, and I want to show them like a graph of this kind of data. Like, my bosses, they're fine, or maybe it's my customer, maybe it's my client, maybe it's not my boss. Say it's my client, and they wanted me to, you know, they want me to build this app for them, but first they want a sense of what's in their data to see whether it's going to give people the trends that they want and that type of thing. Now, if I just throw this in front of a customer, they're going to be like, gross. I don't want to look at this. This is too complicated. It's a nasty big old table. Like, I don't understand all these numbers. What's going on? You know, bosses like, yeah, bosses like pie. People like visual things. People like to see things visually, like pictures, colors, you know, graphics, that type of thing. And as Strain says, might have too many users for a single server, so you want to know how many names are in each to make a simple load splitter. Sure, yeah, all sorts of analytics, all sorts of reasons that analytics can come in handy. So if I want to make a visualization for this data, I can do that with just a couple clicks. So let's say, all right, I kind of know, I like what I'm looking at here. You know, I have this ethnicity filter up top. Um, you know, I've got my kind of my categories broken down here. Um, and so, yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this. Muckalek says conditionally format the top 10. Yeah, and we could do things. We could apply like formatting to highlight the top 10 or whatever. But what I want to do is actually just create a graph for this. So I'm going to go to insert and I'm going to say pivot chart. So insert and pivot chart. And when I do that, it's going to give me a bunch of types of charts to choose from that are going to be automatically generated based on my data set in my pivot table. Okay? So I want to do, I think I want to do radar. Yeah. There's also, I like bar charts. We'll do like a stacked column chart and we'll click OK. So I'm choosing, I went to column and I'm choosing stacked column because they're nice and colorful and I like that. And that automatically generates a chart for us. So I'm going to move this over a little bit so we can see a little bit better. But as we're looking at it here, it's kind of garbage, right? It's not really showing us anything that's useful at this by default. So I can make it bigger so you can see it. Basically what it's doing is it's saying, all right, year of birth stacked like this, and then all the letters, and then female and male as the categories. It's pretty. I know it is pretty, isn't it? It's pretty, but it's not really giving us any useful information at the moment. It's because what I think I want is I want the years, I want these years down at the bottom. Like I want to see like a trend, right? I want to see like a trend over time. Um, and I want the years to be at the bottom. And then, you know, we can tweak this a little bit, but like um oh, thank you, NB Matt. No worries. I like doing it. Yeah, over time, people generally want to see, if you're looking at data over time, you generally want to see the years at the bottom. So it's like a timeline, right? So we're going to have to change this graph. Fortunately, that is very easy to do. All we need to do is rearrange the fields in the pivot table itself because this graph is directly connected to our pivot table. So when I move the pivot table fields around, our graph will magically change. No worries, also. Thanks for stopping in. So what I can do is I can move year of birth. And also too, notice that while I have the pivot table, while I have the graph selected here, these box titles have changed. So this one now says legend right here. This is the legend. This says axis, which is what's down at the bottom. And then our values are still our values. So it's probably a little confusing, but Quadchat says I'm naming my kid Pivot. Sure, go for it. But let's just start moving. There's the nice thing about pivot tables is there's no harm in moving fields around and seeing what happens. So let's do it. So I'm gonna do this, move year of birth, and I'm gonna move first letter up to the legend. Oh, that looks a little better. It's a little better. Now I'm gonna take gender and I'm gonna move it up to the filters. There we go. Okay. Now I think we're getting some better data. we're showing kind of a bar graph of by year, what were the most popular letters, right? So let's see. Imagine your last name was Table and you do that. Well, there's a comic about that. Little Bobby Tables, right? XKCD. Yeah. So now we're kind of getting a visual representation of um, the most popular letters over time. Still not great. We're still not getting a lot of information from this. Excuse me. But what if we did filter by gender, right? So let's look at females. There we go. That changes the count a little bit. And if I hover over a particular bar, it's going to say, oh, this is first letter E, first letter A. So we can see that first letter A kind of gained some popularity over time, then kind of waned a little bit. We could also move first letter to the filter as well. Oh, I guess that didn't work. Never mind. Let's do first letter as a filter, and then we'll do, oh, let's do this. We'll do move gender to the legend. And then I want to see, is A more popular for males or females? Okay, looks like it, gained some popularity for females and then lost some a little bit there. What about M? Okay, definitely more popular for males. You can see by the color breakdown. So there's, in 2019, there were 1225 females with a name starting with M. And then there were 1667 starting with M for males. NB says, do they have a different bar chart that puts each legend item bar side by side instead of stacking them? Yes. And so that's super easy to do. We can go to the design tab and we can change chart type. So instead of being stacked, we can do the side by side. Change the chart type. There we go. Different type of chart. So for this type of thing, if we're looking at the popularity of a specific letter between the genders, this is probably a better way to do it, right? You get the side by side bar chart. Yeah. So let's look at P. And it recalculates. And I bet if I look at like the letter K, we're going to see that surge in popularity from Khaleesi. Oh, not so much actually. Wait, no, there it is. Oh, female is blue. Yeah. Female is blue. I got to look at the legend. Yeah, so that was the surge in popularity from Khaleesi, probably. And then it's gotten much less popular. Or Karen, maybe Karen too. It could be Karen. And so if we want a little even more of a breakdown here, I bet we could have gender and then let's try child's first name or proper case name, either one. Do gender, take that out. Oh, and get rid of the filter. Sorry, I know I'm going kind of fast here, but we're just playing with the data. Proper case name, get rid of that. Oh, too much data. Too much data. That's okay. Oh, it's because I don't have a stacked bar chart anymore. But anyway, we'll back that out. Anyway, this is just the kind of the fun part of pivot tables and pivot charts, is that you can literally just drag and drop fields and play around with the data to your heart's content. You aren't hurting anything. You aren't going to cause any problems. And you can just mess around with stuff. And that's the fun part. That's why pivot tables and pivot charts are so valuable and important. And that's what I really wanted to show here. Muckalek says, I feel really sorry for Karens. Oh yeah. Let's look at Karens. Let's look. I want to see what's going on with Karen. Because we all know that the name Karen has got some unfortunate connotations, right? So I'm going to get rid of any filters here. We'll take that out. And we're going to go to filters. I'm going to pull in proper case name. We'll get rid of any filters there. And I want to look for Karen. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get rid of ethnicity as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Look at that trend. Dang. That is a steady downward drop right there, my friends. Unfortunately, the Karens have not fared well, right? Visible difference. Yeah. And just for funsies, all right, just for funsies, because I can. I'm gonna. uh, let's see. I'm gonna do. Oh, I'm gonna add a trend line as well, just to rub salt in the wound. I added a trend line to the graph to show the clear downward slope. If you couldn't see it already, poor kids. Is the name is 2014 when the name Karen was slandered? I mean, that feels about right. I don't know for sure. It was declining before then though. Um, what's what we say the male equivalent? Maybe Kyle. What do we think Kyle or Kevin? Let's see. Yeah, so Kevin is also on the major downswing. Um, what about Kyle? Yeah, so Kyle as well, also falling. Quachat says my niece just divorced a Kyle. Oh, sorry, Kyle. Google claims Terry. Really a Terry? I don't see. I know a Terry. He's great. I don't know. I don't see Terry as being a problem, like as being like a name that inspires annoyance. Dan says Mayan charts need to go up and to the right for morale. We're trying to find the equivalent of male Karens, and looks like poor Terry isn't very popular either. Yeah, sorry Terry. We just looked up the name Karen and saw that it got slaughtered around, as far as popularity goes. We can see that it's been on a steady downward decline. Ken, really? Oh, it's not gonna. So I would say Kenneth maybe. Look at all the different spellings of Mackenzie, by the way. I want to look at actually. I want to look at Mackenzie's. Okay, so mostly females. Oh, thank you for the stretch. Oh gosh, we're just messing around now. Yeah, I've got both genders selected still, all ethnicities. Yeah, not much movement there. Muckalek says Gantt charts are not easy in Excel. Yeah, I mean you can do different types of charts. Um, really, any type of chart you can think of. Some of them are easier than others to implement, but generally the most common ones that you'll use in Excel are pie charts, um, line charts, and bar charts. I would say. So as long as you can do these three, you'll be fine. But like I'm just trying to demonstrate here, the cool thing, like we've been having fun, right? You can slice and dice your data however you want. You can drag and drop fields. You can get all sorts of insights. Um, you can just generate graphs on the fly, right? So if I was in a meeting with a client and I was trying to demonstrate this data numerically, we wouldn't be able to see the same types of trends and the same types of information that we're seeing just by looking at a visual representation, a visual timeline of that data. And so by using a pivot chart, if I was in a meeting with a client, I could just say, oh, you want to see XYZ? And I could drag the fields around, and then I could filter by a specific value, and then I could show them visually on the fly exactly what they want to see. Yeah. We can look at Donald, sure. Let's see. Don. Oh, I didn't mean to be all caps. There really no Don? I got to double check that. Is there really no Donald in the source data? Let's double check. I'm going back to the source data. Yeah, no, there's no data. There's no Donald in the source data. Keep in mind, keep in mind that this data comes from just from the city of New York, so there could be something to be said there. It's not captured in the source data, but it does just come from the city of New York. New York. Dan says, Maya Wolf, is there a tool to take an Excel table and create the SQL to create the table and insert the data? Yeah, you can do that. I've done it before. I actually use Excel to generate. I use Excel to generate insert statements for me quite often, actually, because what you can do is you can literally write the insert statement and then basically turn it into a formula and then put the cell values in the appropriate places in the insert statements. So you can build formulas, custom formulas to do pretty much anything. It doesn't even have to be a function, it can just be a formula to do exactly what you want to do. So, for example, um, in the source data, it would be something like, insert into, table, uh, and then values. I know this is just pseudocode, but insert into table values, and then you would, um, you could just, and then you'd say the value you want to insert, like that, and then concatenate it together, and then close paren. This is not accurate SQL. I'm just giving you an example of how you can build a formula and pull in a value like that. So just like that, I can build my own insert statements. I know I did that really fast, but essentially that just shows how easy it is. So I use Excel to generate insert statements for me pretty often. Yeah. Frankly says there are two rules for success. One, never reveal all you know. Yeah. And so all I did here was I just, again, use the equal sign to start a formula. I use the double quotes to say I'm typing a string as a string value. I type the string that I want to type, and then I use the and sign to what? Concatenate, my favorite word. And sign to concatenate, and then the value that I want to add in, so the cell value here, and then and sign to concatenate, and then closing parenthesis. And that creates a dynamic form, creates a dynamic insert statement that then I could just dump into a SQL editor and execute. Techno247 says, hi, programming in Excel? A little bit, yeah. I was just showing how you can use Excel to generate an insert statement for SQL. Yeah, based on, cell values in your table. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys before we wrap up and you all have to go watch the Super Bowl, I just want to show you something fun. So, what I want to show you is, let's say you're building an app, right? We talked about this before. Let's say you're building an app and you spent all this time cleaning up your data in your data set, but you want to put that data into an API, right? You want to take this data in this table and put it into an API. Now, what formats do APIs generally use for data storage, or for sending data back and forth? Yeah, generally JSON, sometimes XML, that's true. Yeah, JSON, right? So Excel can do that. If we head over here to the Automate tab, make my window big again. If we head over here to the Automate tab, and this is just for funsies, this is just pure fun. Um, we can see that it gives us some scripts right here. We can expand this, and looky here. There's a script for return table data as JSON. Huh. Interesting. I wonder what this will do. Let's click on it and see. Oh, hey. It opens a new window over here on the right, and it says code editor, of all things. There is a code editor in Excel. Interesting. So let's take a look at what this is. I'm going to say edit. Now it's kind of small, Maybe make it bigger. No, that's not going to work. Well, it's kind of small, but if you squint, you can probably tell what language is this? What is this? Yeah, I'm in desktop. I'm on Office 365 desktop. What language is this? Can you tell? Ah, yeah, it's actually TypeScript. It looks a lot like JavaScript because TypeScript is just a fancier version of JavaScript, really. Yeah, it's TypeScript. You can do TypeScript in Excel, people. Like I said, I mentioned this before. If you can code, you can work in Excel. And you all already know how to code. You already know JavaScript. You know how functions work. You know how to pass arguments into functions. You know how to make your own functions. Well, Excel is here for you. You can literally build scripts and put them in Excel and make them do things in Excel. Mattel says Visual Basic for applications. Actually, no. Newer versions of Excel now run in TypeScript. So these are called macros. These are called macros. Now, macros are essentially just repeatable bits of code that you can run and trigger to perform the same action over and over and over again. It used to be that you had to learn Visual Basic for applications to build macros in Excel. Now, you don't have to. If you know TypeScript, you can build a macro. You can build a script to do anything you want. So let's do it. Let's run this script. We want to take our data that's in this table and I want to format it as JSON so I can put it into an API. So let's take a look at the script. It's got some nice comments here. It's formatting a bunch of stuff. Okay. So it says get the first table in the plain table worksheet. If you know the table name, use workbook.getTable table name. Okay. I think I want to make sure I'm on the right worksheet name. So I'm going to grab the worksheet name. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and rename my worksheet. I'm going to rename it to just popular baby names. So it'll work with the script as is. All right, popular baby names. It's going to look at popular baby names. It's going to get the first table on our popular baby names worksheet. And let's see if it'll run. I honestly don't know if it'll work, but this is, again, just for fun. The script is running. We're going. Oh, we're cooking. Look at this. Look at this. You can't see it very well. It converted the whole thing to JSON. Dude. Look. It converted our whole table to JSON, ready to be loaded into an API. So we didn't have to build formulas to do that conversion. We didn't have to do any of that crap. All we did was run a script for 10 seconds. It took our entire table data and it formatted it as API ready JSON. So this is the types of things that Excel can do for you. What I just showed you is pretty advanced. So if you're new to Excel, don't worry about it. But again, I'm showing you possibilities, types of things that Excel can be good for. Rusty Guy says, is the automate option only available on commercial Office? I don't think so. You may have to enable it, though. It may be that it's disabled by default. So it could be that you have to just enable that tab. Yeah. NB says, so this kind of answers that one question earlier about replacing the D column with the proper case names. You can write a macro. Yeah, you could do it with a macro. That's probably overkill, honestly. What I would do, NB, in that case, is I would just copy the column and paste it over the original. Like, I wouldn't write a macro to do that. Yeah. And then obviously, yeah, there's other ways to convert things to JSON and do that kind of thing. But Excel is your one-stop shop. It not only let us clean up our data set first, right? That's the first thing we did. We analyzed the data set, we cleaned it up. And then we added some additional, data to it, right? These two columns, we added them. We wrote formulas to add them. And then we did analytics to show our client some insights from the data to make sure that our client was happy with the data. And then we got it all ready to be loaded into our API. So it's our one-stop shop for all of our data needs. That's the great thing about Excel. Muckalek says, can you show how you started that? Yep. I went to the Automate tab, which you may or may not have. And there's just a bunch of sample scripts that they give you by default. And then one of them is return table data as JSON. So I clicked on it. So like this. I clicked on it and then I said edit just so we could see the script. It showed me the script and then I clicked run. And then I ran the script. So yeah, you can just build a TypeScript function directly in Excel, have it do whatever you want, and then have it, manipulate your data. Google Sheets is slacking. Yeah, Google Sheets does not have this functionality. Not that this is something you'll use every day. I just think it's really freaking cool, and I wanted to show it to you. Yeah, you can use the API for Google Sheets too. Yep. Mine might have actually encouraged us to pay for something dangerous. Again, this part is just for fun. Really, most of what you'll be doing in Excel should be available in any version of Excel. And again, too, if you weren't here for the start of the stream, I do want to remind you that you do not have to pay for Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office is available for free. And I'll share that link one more time. You can access Microsoft Excel and all of the Office software in the web for free without paying. So don't pay for it unless you want to. The web version is free for everybody as long as you have a Microsoft account. All right. Thank you for the follows, BKJ133 and Techno247, Supermuffin77, MogWyXD. Thank you all so much for the follows. NB says, oh, I had no idea they made Microsoft Office free now. Yeah, they did, which I think is directly because of Google Sheets. Yeah, because of Google Sheets and LibreOffice and those competitors, Microsoft was like, oh crap, we're going to lose market share, so they made a free version. Yeah, Microsoft. The reason I really like Microsoft is because they've chosen to do this kind of thing. Um, think about like VS Code, right? VS Code is free. Think about Visual Studio. Visual Studio community is free. GitHub is free. Office Online is free. Microsoft is really aiming for that free tier to really get people hooked on their applications. And then they make it free for the individual, and then they make corporations pay a bunch of money, which that's how it should be, right? Things should be free for individuals and then cost corporations a bunch of money. And overall, I think in the grand scheme of things, that's how life should work. Things should be really expensive for businesses, like for big companies. Things should be really expensive and they should be free for us plebs. Exactly. Microsoft became awesome when they got into the open source community and started supporting them. Yep, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that philosophy. Absolutely. That's why I will always vouch for Microsoft. All right. Well, we've already gone over time. I want everybody to get to the Super Bowl if that's your plan for this evening. Um, thank you all for coming out. Even though it's game day, I didn't even think about that. Like I said, I didn't remember it was Super Bowl day until this morning. So I'm surprised this many of you actually showed up because I'm sure there's a lot of folks who are doing things that are way more fun than Microsoft Excel this afternoon. The tailgate party. Yeah. Nothing says sports like spreadsheets, my friends. I mean, what could be more exciting? Honestly, name one thing. Name one thing that says game day more than data analytics and spreadsheets. For real. Spreadsheet Sunday. Yeah. Dan says automating the creation of spreadsheets. I've done that. It is exciting. Sports is all spreadsheets. He says, yeah, I guess fantasy football. Yeah. There is actually, All Too Swift says, this is making me want to watch the Excel Super Bowl. There is an Excel esports competition, and it is fantastic. I forget what is it called? Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up. There is an Excel Super Bowl, um, and it's really incredible. Let me see. I'm gonna Google it real quick. I'm gonna open a new window and Google it. You owe it. Everybody should watch it at least once. Uh, oh yeah, it's the Financial Modeling World Cup. Yeah, it's the Financial Modeling World Cup, and it is literally Excel esports. I've got. It started out so. This is the best part. It started out as a joke. So there's the link. It's the Financial Modeling World Cup, and it started out as a joke, like a Funny or Die video back in like 2011. And then the financial modeling people were like, actually, that might not be a bad idea. What if we could make an Excel competition? And now it's legit. It's not a joke like the Puppy Bowl. It is like it is a legit competition with really difficult challenges and time limits to solve them. And there's like there's like a bracket. It's like a whole thing. Yeah. Strain says competitions on the Ocho getting wild these days. Literally, I think that's actually that may have been was it may have been the Ocho where it originated. It's oh yeah, that's right. No, that is it actually airs on the Ocho. I know you're kidding, Strain, but there's a ESPN does the Ocho, and I do believe it actually airs on the Ocho for ESPN. You weren't kidding. Okay, all right, yeah, no, it yeah, I love it. It's so good. NB says, I'm retiring from coding in order to become a professional Excel esports competitor effective immediately. Do it. Anybody can. You need a fantasy financial modeling World Cup league, mirrors within mirrors. No, check it out. It's legit fun to watch. It's a jam. And hey, nobody's getting horrific head injuries or anything. Nobody's getting cognitive brain damage from head injuries at the Excel World Championships. All right. All right. With all that said, go get Microsoft Office for free online. Um, you can be my coach. I'm not good enough to be a coach for the Financial Modeling World Championships. I love Excel. I use it all the time, but gosh dang it, those people are just wizards. Yeah. So go get Office for free. Set up your Microsoft account. Go to Office for free. Mess around with Excel. Just go to the data.gov site. Go to data.gov and download a data set. Just doesn't matter what it is, and just play around. Learn how to write some formulas, build some graphs, build some pivot tables, and you're not going to break anything. Just mess around with Excel until you start to feel comfortable, and then you can put it on your resume. I literally got my second job out of college. This is like, I'm not exaggerating. I got my second job out of college because I knew what a pivot table was and I could describe it over the phone. So just the bare fact that I knew what a pivot table was and I could describe it to my then manager to my upcoming manager over the phone. He told me later, like a year later, he was like, "That's why I hired you." Because you could tell me what a pivot table was. So you never know what little thing is going to open the door to your next job. And I mean, if you're going to learn anything, it might as well be Excel. Quadshot says free data sets and websites other than data.gov. If you just Google like free data sets, you'll get sites that'll tell you where to find other data. There's several more out there. I would say data.gov is probably the easiest to use, but there's others out there. Yep. Yeah. Okay, folks. We'll find someone to raid real quick. It's getting close to 6:30, Super Bowl time. So I'm gonna look up someone real quick to raid. We'll see if anybody's even online. I don't know if they will be, but we'll see. Um, 2 seconds. Makaru can make a data set. ChatGPT can also generate data a little bit. It's not great at it always, but ChatGPT can help you generate sample data as well. Oh, we got some folks online today. Let's do our friend Ian Douglas. Oh, BKJ, you glad you found this stream? That's awesome. I'm glad to have you here. All right, let's rate our friend Ian Douglas. Haven't rated them in a while. Also, they emailed me a 3D printed catapult, so I feel like we owe them a raid. So let's hit up Ian Douglas, see what they're up to. And Techno says, when next are you streaming? It'll be next Sunday. Yeah, next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Alrighty, raid is starting now. I will see you all next weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. All right, raid is starting in 10 seconds. 2, 1, rating now. See ya.